Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 15th regular meeting of council. And Judy, if we could call the roll.
Absolutely. Housh.
I'm here.
Stokes.
Here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
McLean. Here. Also present is Village Manager Jose Salmeron, Public Works Director Johnny Burns, Finance Director Amy Kemper, Village Solicitor Amy Blankenship, and Council Member Carmen Brown.
All right. And I heard Council Member Carmen come into the mix. How are you doing? Got her bulldog blue on. I love that. As always, yes. Do I feel like that happens to me every other day? Yeah. So, all right. So I think, first of all, we've got announcements, and I heard our village manager has a few.
Yes, we have an announcement. Johnny, can we get started?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, drum roll.
Wow.
All right, first thing we got to do is hand up.
Wow.
More constitutions.
Oh, my gosh.
All right.
We need this.
Our water.
Yes.
It's not just any water.
It's not just any water.
That's right.
This is village water.
Award
Wow.
winning.
Oh, wow.
Started this
All right.
process, Brian, back
Yeah.
2014 when I got here. We started this process. We built a new plant. We've moved on. We entered last year the Ohio Rural Water. We finished third. This year, we went up. They had more than they ever have had. They had 11 other places. And we won. So I have my team. My team should be coming through the door. So in 2023, we are representing the state of Ohio for all the rural water. Now, mind you, the competition is not little villages. We went, second place has 73,000 taps. Third place has 55,000 taps. They have 30 water towers. We have 2.
Wow.
We have a staff of 4. They have a staff of 40 plus people. By far, 2022, it was a tie. They had 68 for 2 of them, and we had 67. This year, we had a 65 for third place. We had a 67 for second place, and we had a 69, 1 point from being a perfect score.
Wow.
So amongst all of our water production people, we, the little village of Yellow Springs that are mighty and strong with 4 great water plant operators, we are now first place. Let me see if they're out here.
Trophy?
Wow. Nice.
So I'll introduce them because I don't know if you know them all. This is Brad Alt. He's the superintendent. He's been here 16 years. Kevin Martin, he has been here for almost 6 years now.
Just almost 5.
Almost 5. Jeff Horn's been here since 2014, was a lineman, and now he switched over to the water plant. Okay.
Dale
Fisher, he has been with us for 8 years, Dale.
Right at it?
Right at 8. He was at the streets and parks. He transferred over to the water plant, wastewater plant this year as well. So with these 4 people, we brought home the first place for the village of Yellow Springs. I gave you all the water so we could actually give a toast with the high quality, like Bobby Boucher, the high quality H2O that.
All right, Jessica, can you do this picture?
I can.
All right, sweet.
Can I have you guys come this way?
Oh my gosh, awesome.
And so, yeah, like almost create like a
Maybe turn it the other.
Yes,
The
there we
sign is
go.
on the other one.
It's on both sides.
There's one on both sides.
Oh, nice.
What's a little water pump?
So this toast is for the 4 operators that get it done for the village of Yellow Springs every day.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right. Nice.
And then can I get just one of the last of you?
Yeah. We don't have to have council in every picture. Yeah.
Get in there. You got him?
Wow.
And it's good too.
Nice.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
That is what we wanted to start off council with.
That
that is
is-
a huge accomplishment.
It is.
That's a
If you
great
guys-
way.
This trophy will stay up here. We're going to keep it in Bryan Center somewhere. Just take a look at the names. We're like one of the very few smallest people on that, and some of them are 8 and 9 times, and this
Nice.
been going on for 20 years.
Wow.
So Little Yellow Springs, Big Yellow Springs, however you want to look at it, is the best in the rural water tasting competition. There's five people that test it from taste, sight. They have smell. And all that. So needless to say, we're
Yeah,
goofing
smell's
all over
important.
today, and so,
That's great.
That's so great. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Wow. All right. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Brad. Yeah. Appreciate it. All right. Nice job, buddy.
Awesome. Hey.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks. Hey, thanks.
Well, and I've just got to say, what's amazing about this is, Marianne and I came on board when having local water was the main voting issue. Like whether we were gonna send it out to Springfield or keep it local. And it's been amazing because we had the faith in our team to make sure that we were going to maintain the facility and that it was going to be a value to all our citizens. And I agree. I love our water. So yeah, nice job. All right.
Smile, a bigger smile when we pay that bill this month.
Yeah. See? Exactly. Wow.
You know our water's.
See? Huh. Did you have anything else? Oh, that was
Big
one.
one.
All right. Yeah. Gavin.
Yeah.
I guess I hope this is an appropriate announcement. I just want to make sure that everybody was aware that we have a new special election in Ohio that'll be on August 8th this year. It's a bill, it was just passed through the legislature last week. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware to vote on August the 8th. I believe there will only be one thing on the ballot, which will be this initiative that was a constitutional amendment that's put forth by the legislature on a party line vote with some Republicans who broke from their party, but it would increase the threshold for passing ballot initiatives, constitutional amendments from 50% plus one, which is the current threshold, to 60%. It also raise the signature gathering threshold from 44 county threshold right now to a threshold in all 88 counties, and remove what's called the cure period, a period after you turn in your first round of signatures that gives you a little bit more time to collect signatures after they've verified the number of signatures that you've submitted. So it's a unique circumstance that they're putting on a ballot this late, and so August 8th, there will be an election. So just encourage folks to get out to vote on August the 8th.
Yeah, and I think that's totally appropriate. I appreciate that, Gavin. Obviously, you're a little bit more measured than I would be about that statement. But yeah, this is, one more aspect of our state legislature trying to restrict what we can do democratically. So I always have a few things. I wanted to mention, and we're going to talk about this later, we do have an extended agenda planning piece, and I think that's going to segue into what Josue put into the mix around working sessions and resolving what that really looks like. But I really appreciate that Gavin's push forward, that it's good to be thoughtful about how we plan our agendas on a regular basis. Josue, I guess I want to like have some clarity around the changes in the Xenia dispatch fees. I know it wasn't in your manager's report, but we got something from Paige about that. And so I just want to make sure everyone understands that I think they're going to charge us more moving forward.
Correct.
So anyway, we don't have to talk about that now. So this Thursday is Mental Health Action Day. And I think many of us know this month is recognizing mental health awareness. Huge right now, definitely for our village, but May 18th is about taking an hour to, think about your own mental health. I want to remind people, May 17th, this Wednesday, again, is Walk Bike to School Day, mostly focused on Mills Lawn, so make sure to be careful and recognize that you've got a lot of kids walking and biking to school, which we should do every day. I want to make sure that council members knew about the honoring of Sheriff Fisher on June 30th. And there's going to be a dedication. If you did not see that info, Judy's got that. But I think we all appreciated that he was a sheriff that actually appreciated our village values. And I hope that is something that moves forward. Age-friendly grants I have on my list for June 16th, so maybe that's for you. And wow, the flash mob. I'm looking forward to seeing Josue in the mix again.
Yeah.
All right, I will be out there this time. It's May 31st at 1 p.m. We do the flash mob. If any of us want to get our dance moves together, we have a couple opportunities to do that. So
Pam, the mayor's there, the chief is there.
all right,
Maybe we can get public crews, public works crews to come out.
see. All right, I love it. And then my understanding is that today is the last day for the school survey around the various options. So, did they extend it? Oh, is that done? Okay, all right. So I hope you guys contributed. All right. So with that, I think we're going to move into the consent agenda.
I think we have a
Oh,
announcement from the floor.
oh, Scott. All right.
Hello, my name is Scott Osterholm. It's kind of rare being here, is actually just being a citizen, which I kind of like. A group of us have come to the realization that, especially with all the bad things seem to be happening locally lately in the last couple months, it's time for a little bit of something positive. We're proposing that we'd like to rename the softball field at Gaunt Park in honor of Jackie and Yvonne Davenport.
Oh, that's great.
And we would like to call it the Jackie and Yvonne Davenport Memorial Field. I talked to Johnny Burns to kind of get a price quote on a sign. We'll pay for the sign. That's not a problem. I just can't get a firm price until we kind of get a blessing, for this. But what I'd like to do, that's the idea. But I'd like this young lady, Mariah Johnston, to tell us about her grandmothers.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So most of what I have written down is really just a big thank you, because as I'm sure many of you know, we've just had a huge outpouring of support, especially from Mayor Pam and longtime family friends like Carmen, and of course, Scott, who has come up with this fantastic idea. And so we lost my grandma Yvonne a little over 2 years ago to cancer, and we just lost her sister this March. And we just had a large celebration of life. And I think the main thing that I just wanted to communicate with council and with the community is that we had 4 plus generations stand up and talk about the huge impact these two women had on raising them, in making everyone feel included, loved, celebrated. And we're just really hoping to carry on that legacy. For those of you who don't know or did not read the 5 billion word obituary that I had in the news, my grandmothers were very, very active in athletics. And to keep this sort of short and sweet, they have been running softball leagues and volleyball leagues right here in the Bryan Center and hosting the most popular Halloween bonfire for, over 30, 40, 50 years. My grandmother, Jackie, was the first female water plant operator, and she served the village for decades. And my grandmother, Yvonne, worked at Antioch and was in the union. So they've just been doing an amazing job. We are really hoping to continue that work by launching a Davenport Legacy Scholarship for a Yellow Springs High School athlete, female athlete. That would be an annual scholarship, and we're going to try to put that together with the Community Foundation. And we're really hoping that you'll consider this dedication at Gaunt Park too. They spent many, many, many days out there in the heat, bringing people from all different walks of life together through sports and through a sense of community. So I really thank everyone for their time, and I hope that we can make that happen. And of course, a huge shout out to Scott for bringing it up in the first place.
Well, thanks, Mariah. Well, I think I'll make a motion to support that.
A second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Awesome. Thanks for bringing that forward. And yeah, we will, we'll definitely work together on that. Yeah, that makes so much sense. So that's great. Okay, so I think we're going to move into the consent agenda. And first is the minutes from our last meeting, May 1st. So I'm going to pull that onto the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, and we got abstain from Kevin. Although, by the way, if you read the minutes, you are allowed to vote on them, but you don't have
Do I
to.
have to read every word?
Of course you do. Yes. Yeah, because, Judy's got this brilliant like articulation of everything that happens. All right, and next up, we've got the credit card statement from May. And so we'll move that onto the agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I did actually have a couple questions I wanted to ask. So I assume like the reimburse at the end means that was reimbursed back to the village. All right, so anyway, it was great that Sparks was able to attend that meeting, and glad that he took his wife. And so, the reimburse means that was reimbursed back to the village. Health, wellness, moral, I guess that should be morale. But those expenditures, I saw a couple of those, so I mean, I understand we have a commitment to health, wellness, and morale. But anyway, we should put the E at the end of moral. Anything we should know about those, or?
There are approved expenditures. I don't recall the details of them, but they typically will be things that are related to the health and well-being within the department. That can be cleaning supplies or other things that are personal items.
Okay.
But I will find out and get back to you.
Okay, and just put that E on there, because I don't know that we want to pay for moral expenses. And then the last thing was, I just wondered with the internet to the lift station, are we going to be able to absorb that in municipal broadband?
At some point, yes, we actually have fiber that is right outside of the lift station. We haven't terminated into the building. and brought it back to the John Bryant Center because it was across the street. So the goal is to eventually eliminate that expense and have it tied into our network.
Cool. Okay.
As for the Sun Farm, Sun Farm as well, we've got the wastewater treatment facility connected back to us and the pool, but we've got a couple facilities that still need to connect back to our network.
Cool. Okay. Anything else?
I did have
Gavin.
just making sure. So this 99,004, when it says payment, that's like paying our bill?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So review of the agenda. Anything we need to add, modify, or subtract? Okay. Oh,
I
Marianne?
believe there was a request to remove the pesticide policy.
Okay.
Carmen, is that?
So
There was a request to remove the pesticide policy or table it, or we can, that's, yeah.
So I guess I'll just say I don't want to do that.
Okay.
But if, I don't know if you guys want to discuss it or,
I mean, we can discuss, okay, we can discuss it.
okay. We don't normally have somebody like call out from
Right,
the
no,
audience, but yeah.
Of course, and also, if, if you don't want to do that, and you've expressed that you don't want to do that, then we will discuss it.
Okay. So I think we should leave it on the agenda, and then Johanna, you can talk about it then. Okay. Anything else? All right, then, Kevin, I think it's up to you. Petitions and communications.
All right, thank you. All right, the clerk has received and will file a letter from Matt Raska regarding a road safety article that was submitted. A letter from Susan Alberter expressing support for staff recommendations regarding conditional use of respective legislation. Greene County has 3 announcements or letters in there. One about our county health ranking. We've gone up a notch, if you will, in our county rankings compared to other counties in the state. The fact that this month is also Motorcycle Safety Month, and also, Brian, as you alluded to, Mental Health Awareness Month. Brian, there's a letter that you submitted, the response that you received from Representative Amit Bose. The mayor's clerk has submitted 2 reports. There's a letter from Kevin Magruder regarding Juneteenth sponsorship request. John Hempling has a letter regarding dwellings in industrial zones. Antioch College has the flyer discussing the invitation to the Antioch Victory event. And YSPD shared some information regarding a safety village, I guess you call it a camp, that's going to be going on for a week. And those are the extent of what the clerk has received in petitions and communications. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
And
Thank
just
you,
a
Kevin.
quick,
Yeah.
quick ask, do you want to move the Juneteenth sponsorship into new business?
Oh, yeah.
Coming right up.
Yeah, I think let's add that to new business. I think that also relates to a discussion about timely requests. So, yep, sounds good. Okay. So, and remind me about that, Judy. All right, so we're going to move into public hearings. And I guess, first of all, I'll ask for a motion to waive the requirement to have second readings on these ordinances.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Well, I have a
Oh,
question. Didn't
yes.
we do these last time?
What's that?
Didn't we have these ordinances?
They were
last
first
time?
readings.
I know, so this would be the second, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is just I'm sorry, I should have said reading them in full.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, got it.
I apologize, yeah.
Restate.
Yeah, so a motion to not required to read them in full.
Thank you.
Sure, that one. Yeah, me too.
See, I'm sorry, I tried to shortcut it. I feel like I need to record that, for, all right. So So I got a motion from
And-
Gavin and a second. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Marianne. Okay, so ordinance 2023-17, we can read by title only.
All right, this is repealing and replacing Chapter 1242.04 Annexed Land of the Yellow Springs zoning code.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So let's see.
I can jump in.
I mean,
So did
should we?
We could do a summary of all of them.
Yeah, that'd be nice if we could. Yeah.
So, as you know, Denise is on vacation, so we're sad she can't join us today. This, what's before you are all the changes that we discussed previously. There's a one-page memo from Denise about what are the proposed changes, and it captures all the desires that council wanted to see in these ordinance as a result of the advocacy and presentation of Neighbors for More Neighbors. So there's a memo there. I think you have Amy and myself that we can take any questions you may have on what's before you for a second reading.
Okay. So I think, as everyone knows, annexed land is about the change we made was from RA to RC, in line with the idea that we want to maximize usage of property. So I'm going to open the public hearing. And any questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from citizens? All right, I'll close the public hearing then. And Judy, if you could call the roll.
All right, McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Housh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is ordinance 2023-20, which we can do by title only.
This is repealing and replacing Chapter 1250 Business Districts of the Village of Yellow Springs zoning code.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. So briefly, this is about looking at business districts in terms of what's available, residential and non-residential. I'm going to open the public hearing. Questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from citizens? All right, we're going to close the public hearing then. And Judy? Oh, sorry. Yeah, John, come on.
So I think this is just a typo. I don't think it has any legal effect necessarily, but it could be confusing. In the specifics conditions section, it says that the only thing that you're changing, the dwelling units on upper floors of buildings with non-residential uses at street level would be subject to the specific requirements in 1262.08E4. But my understanding is that the regulations in Chapter 12 only apply to conditional uses, so they wouldn't apply. Am I correct, Amy?
In business districts or in?
Business?
Industrial.
I did cover this in my letters. Not to say that everyone has to read everything I sent, but I don't actually have any opinion. So if I'm correct, then I would suggest that you strike it. But if I'm wrong, then don't.
Okay, thanks, John. All right.
126802 is in reference to the site plan review, not conditional use review.
1262?
Oh, 1262.
1262, oh wait, see.
1262 is the conditional use requirements. So was this to be in reference to 1268, do we think?
I thought this was about industrial. not
We're still in
business.
business.
Business now.
Yeah, we're still in 12, he's referencing, there's a change in in chapter 1250 that references 1262.
Yeah, so it used to be relevant because it used to be that one of those uses was conditional, but now that you're making them both permitted, it's not relevant. So the cross-reference just needs to be struck.
Okay, so like in the fourth column, specific conditions,
Yeah.
do you mind coming up here for a second?
I have it on the screen if you're near it, put it up.
Right there.
needs to be struck through.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think I agree with that at first blush. If we're making them permitted, that we wouldn't be referencing 126208. So
Which is not a substantive change.
I don't think so either. It's just an
correcting
oversight that needs to be
an
stricken.
oversight.
So I think you can do that as amended.
Okay, cool. So I'll make a motion to amend to strike that reference to conditional. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. And the public hearing's still open. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Judy, we need to vote on the amendment first? Or-
You just agreed to strike that section, so you're just voting on the amended.
Okay,
That is with that strike through.
okay, all right.
Okay,
So,
Clear on that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
pretty much. Okay.
so then we call the vote on the amended
Yep.
version. All right,
All right, Brown,
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is ordinance 2023-21, which we can do by title only.
This is repealing and replacing Chapter 1252 Industrial Districts of the Village of Yellow Springs zoning code.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing on this, and questions or comments from council? Okay, comments from citizens? All right,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I guess I'm just confused now, because the letter, I thought this letter was about industrial. So is it only in the business but not in the industrial?
It is in the industrial, but it's,
oh, you got to come up if you want to.
sorry, not that resident. It is in the industrial, but in that case, it actually is relevant because the use in the industrial is conditional. I am going to speak against the amendment and in favor of repealing it, and then arguably that reference is going to be weird and maybe needs to be struck out later. But they're like, it's a chicken and the egg problem. Whichever ordinance you tackle first, the other one is implicated. For example, if you don't pass this ordinance, then the other ordinance would be also sort of muted. So
do you want?
So I don't want to speak to this ordinance. I want to just speak to, I was just planning to speak to 2023-23 when that one comes up, was my plan. Even though I will be advocating for repealing the ordinance that you're referring to, that's cross-referenced there.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Do you want to? Yeah. You're sure you don't want to speak about it now? Okay. Fair enough.
I think it would be
Okay.
better to speak later.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
All right, Stokes,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Housh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 2023-22, which we can do by title only.
Well, this is repealing and replacing Chapter 1258 Schedule of District Uses of the Yellow Springs zoning code.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, and I'm going to open the public hearing, and Josue, remind us what this one's about?
This is updating the schedule, which reflects all the other changes that you're making to the
Right.
schedule.
So this is a basic housekeeping. Gotta check the boxes. Questions or comments? All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, we can call the roll.
Stokes,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Housh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, ordinance 2023-23, we can do by title only.
This is repealing and replacing Section 1262.08E4, specific requirements of Chapter 1262, conditional use requirements of the Yellow Springs zoning code.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. I'm going to open the public hearing. Questions or comments from council? All right, John Hempfling. And actually, I'm glad you're coming up on this. Also want to speak to it. Yep.
Okay, so I was wondering if staff could speak in favor of it, because this is actually the first public discussion of this. I don't actually know, and there's not been anything in the packet either to say why this was recommended. It didn't come before Planning Commission. Could staff speak to it first? Is that okay?
Well, be more specific about what they're speaking to.
Previously, the amendment to the ordinance applies basically, would mean that for the conditional use that you just created in the industrial district, that you would not be allowed to have non-residential uses on the same floor as residential uses if you pass this amendment. That's basically what the amendment does. And I don't agree with that, but I wanted to hear the argument in favor of it first.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's clear enough. All right.
Amy, do you remember it well enough? I mean, I can give you the general sense, and
Sure. That's
Carmen was at Planning Commission as well. So this adds dwelling units in buildings with non-residential, and then it removes the sentence, that's the phrase that says dwelling units shall not be located on the street level of a mixed-use building. By adding those, and it removes those. So by doing those two things, you allow dwelling units in buildings which contain industrial uses, but they cannot be on the same floor as the industrial use, and they are conditional, so that you can determine whether or not there's any kind of safety issue to be involved. So if you've got storage on the first floor, you can have residential on the second floor, as long as you're not storing fireworks. You can have residential on the first floor if you have storage on the second floor, as long as you're not storing fireworks. So you see what I'm saying? That is why it is conditional, so that Planning Commission can make a determination of safety, but allows for either floor as long as the storage is not on that same floor.
So I guess I read it the way I think John read it, which was you could not have residential and non-residential on the same floor. So are you saying that, are you saying
Correct.
it can happen if it conditionally, or?
No, you
Okay.
can put all your fireworks on the first, no, not fireworks.
Okay,
You
so
put all the
then,
puppies on the first floor. And all the-
so then I guess I don't feel like that's answering the question, but maybe I'm missing something. So, because I guess I also don't understand, like, if I'm reading it correctly, like if I have a computer business where everything's quiet and somebody's got an apartment next to me, why that's a big deal. So what am I missing?
If you have an industrial use in an industrial district, the firewall specifications and other things between a business and a dwelling unit are significant. It is even between.
Right, but conditional could take care of that, right?
Not unless the building is constructed in that manner. And then I suppose someone could come and say, you know, I built this building for this precise reason, and it's constructed with firewalls
Yeah.
all over the place. But in general, the sense from Planning Commission was we want to give primacy to the industrial districts because we don't have a lot of them and we don't have a lot of industry. So we want to make sure that the first thing in is industry, and that is what is at the forefront. And then dwelling units are a secondary use. And yes, we'll consider them as long as they are safe and they are not on that same floor with the industrial unit, with the assumption being you are probably moving in and out a lot more materials. You probably have a lot more foot traffic. It's simpler to say, put your dwelling on a different level.
Right. What I guess that still doesn't respond to, I feel like the primary use is still business industrial. And then as long as, residential's not majorly conflicted. So anyway, so I feel like I'm still missing something.
Do we actually have any buildings, industrial, well, I guess I can think of one, but any buildings that have 2 floors where this would happen? Because you have to have 2
Industrial
floors, at least 2 floors for.
I don't think so. Industrial area will be the Bushworks Lumber Company. 888 Dayton Street does. 888 Dayton Street has second story.
You guys got to come up if you're gonna. All right, Mark.
Just as a clarification, the property at 888 Dayton Street has two floors and which would be separating any industrial work from a possible domicile.
So we have one building.
Okay.
Two buildings.
So by the way, I'm not sure if I opened the public hearing, but I'm going to make sure I do that right now. Josue, do you want to add anything?
No, what Judy's understanding of what the intent of planning commission is my understanding of it. I think you raised the issue of what's the primary use in the industrial zone, it's industrial businesses.
Right. But if we have if it's conditional, I mean, I feel like we can respond to that. So, I mean, I will say when I read that, I didn't understand why we needed to totally ban like residential and non-residential on the same floor. So I'm still not like getting that.
So the one thing that it might do that would be a clear detriment to someone who had a dwelling unit in an industrial building is if my business is puppies and I move out and the business moving in is fireworks, you're going to have to move. It's an industrial zone. I mean, whoever owns that building is probably going to prioritize the industrial use. And whereas if you just said, hey, not on the same floors, you've got a person who's less likely to lose their home, which would be a bummer. I mean, I see like, let's squash housing in wherever we can squash housing in, but I don't like the thought that when you know that the primary use for that district is industrial, and you take that risk that, okay, we conditionally approved this thing, but now later, by right, this industrial use can come in, well, now you've got to go.
But doesn't the conditional use process take care of that?
But I'm talking about after the fact. If an industrial use leaves and another one comes in, that is industrial by right. That's what the district is for. So then you've got your conditional use apartment over here. That's problematic.
Well, I think, you know, I'm hoping we don't have a fireworks business coming into town, but
it's allowed.
I mean, you know, and maybe it would, but I will say that part did not make sense to me. And I still feel like the reason why we're doing conditional on these things is because we can address that. And so I'm open to making an amendment on it. All right. John, I'll let you like come back up, and then Johnny, it sounds like you want to say something too.
So,
You know?
so yeah, so I'm sorry. Go ahead. But, so yeah, so I just wanted to say that I think that Judy Kintner makes a good point. So Brianne suggested creating this use in the industrial district, and because a person was living in an industrial district and had approached the village about legalizing that dwelling, but that wasn't possible under the previous zoning code. And my understanding is with this amendment, it also probably wouldn't be possible under the new zoning code either. But basically Brianne's view was like, well, the purpose of zoning is to like prevent harmful uses from like hurting like other uses that you want to allow. And the idea is like, well, since the residential use can't possibly have a negative impact on the industrial use, why would we want to prevent the residential use? I think Judy's absolutely right, and I think that is how this should be implemented. That if you wanted to change uses, you should probably like have to go back to planning commission or whatever. That the residential use certainly, however this gets implemented, ideally would not be preventing an industrial use, because that would be very bad, because we want to allow the industrial uses. But in general, I agree with Brian that I think that the conditional use process should be able to filter out for that. And I think that there are a lot of business uses, a lot of industrial uses in the industrial district right now that I don't think do pose a problem, wouldn't pose a problem to a potential dwelling. And yeah, I think the planning commission would be able to handle that through the conditional process. But this is definitely the least important zoning issue that you will ever debate at council.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, you know, that was very confusing testimony. I'm not gonna like, you know, hang my shingle on this or whatever, but I didn't really understand why we were making that distinction since it's conditional, but, you know,
Do you mind if I weigh in?
sure.
I think just because Denise isn't here, I think if she was here, is that the industrial use, as Judy said, is by right. So if there's a residential use in the building and you have an industrial user who wants to come into the space, there's already a residential use on site, you wouldn't want that to get in the way of the industrial user selecting that site. And I think Denise's thought was, okay, let's allow it as a conditional use, but separate it as best we can so that the industrial use has a chance to come and go, right, without the residential use preventing that or being in their way if they had something that was a little bit more, problematic than puppies. That makes sense. Right? Isn't that what you think the discussion was at Planning
Makes
Commission?
sense, yeah, it does make sense. The issue that I had with it was the issue of accessibility for someone who would use.
That's right.
So someone who's non-ambulatory, motorized, chair, wheelchair, crutches,
That's right. I knew
whatever.
there was another issue.
Yeah,
with it,
so
and I can't remember.
that was the thing. But I totally get the point that Judy made, and I totally understand the issue of making it conditional as a possible deterrent for people in the future that really don't exist right now, that we're talking about in the future when we have all this industry that comes into town.
Sure.
But that was the only piece that I had an issue with. That's it.
Okay. So I think just because I don't think, I think the conditional use takes care of it, I'm going to make a motion that we remove the same floor language. And if I don't get any support for that, that's fine. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
If we did that, then this thing wouldn't even be here at all, would it? I mean, the only purpose of 1260, what we're looking at right now is distinguishing between the second and, between the floors. So it just goes away, then it would go away.
Right? Is that right?
I'm sorry, are we in 2023, 23?
Yes.
Yes, 2023.
Yeah,
If we eliminate the second clause of that sentence, shall not be located on the same floor, that might defeat the purpose of the entire amendment.
You want to elaborate?
If I understood Mary Ann correctly, was that the only reason
Oh,
this.
so you agree?
Just reiterating what Mary Ann
Okay.
said.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So, layperson here. So if it being on okay, so one floor puppy show, I want to say puppy mill, it's not right.
Yeah, please don't. When you start with puppy. We will never have that in Yellow Springs, yeah.
We have the use by right, which is industrial, on the bottom floor. And then on the second floor, we have an apartment that the owner wants to put somebody in, or they want to live in themselves, maybe. But there is no second floor, and so they couldn't live there. So I guess it's like the firewall thing. It's like, what's the difference between having somebody on the second floor versus having them on the first floor? Like, what needs to happen? Why couldn't they just be right next to each other if the building was the right, you know what I mean? I don't know. There's too many questions.
I know what you mean, because again, like, if that person next to me is like a writer or like, there's, I don't know, like a undercover detective or whatever. I mean, just somebody that's not like being that, like, I watch too many, like, series or whatever. I just.
Commercial bakery. Imagine the
Okay.
heat, imagine the smells, imagine the deliveries, imagine the traffic.
But doesn't conditional like take care of that, or like,
smells go sideways.
am I?
Okay,
So yeah,
can I just,
Yeah.
from the other angle?
Yeah.
If you let's use the bakery example.
Okay.
And let's say Carmen decides she wants to move next to the hypothetical bakery.
with her puppy farm.
Have a baby.
Okay, let's say next to the actual
Have a
bakery.
baby.
And Carmen's okay with it. So then Carmen moves in, but then Carmen's living there, and then somebody wants to move in with a puppy
Grooming.
grooming, and then Carmen, who does not like dogs or other animals, is not okay with it. Do we limit industrial use by allowing residential? Like, as in, like, would there be, like, what happens then if Carmen's telling her landlord, I don't want a puppy place?
Oh, jeez.
Really, what you're saying is, if you are either intrepid enough or unfortunate enough to have to live in an industrial zone, and those are the two groups of people, you are going to be, your life will change depending on what industrial use is permitted, and it is permitted. So it may be a fine next to a bakery one day, and it might be a not so fine next to a distillery the next to a printing press the next. And so that's the thing I think that was trying to be avoided.
Also, we should probably stop being cute and talking about bakeries and puppies and talk about what's actually permitted uses in the industrial districts, which is things like HVAC sales, locksmith shops, machinery, equipment sales and service, pest control services, petroleum sales. I mean, these are industrial uses, right? And so even allowing residential in these buildings at all is, it's change. It's a bit of a, it's a good example of why a conditional use is appropriate, right? Because these uses should be evaluated like, well, should we be allowing residential in this building? Does it make sense from a public health, safety, welfare perspective? But the concern is the flip side, that the residential has already been conditionally permitted and it's in the building. And then the next door neighbor who was a mail order business moves out and a petroleum product salesperson moves in. That's where the concern comes from. And I feel like we are not doing Denise justice. I can't, for the life of me, remember, she has very specific reasons for what she is drafting here today. So my suggestion would be I think maybe if we're going to make a change like this, can we kick it and to a meeting when Denise will be back here to weigh in on it and give her reason? Because she had very specific thoughts about this particular section, and I can't remember. I can't do her justice and remember exactly what that was.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll motion to table.
Second.
I think
All the way from South Korea, she said, put it on the brakes. I'll deal with it when I get back.
All
All
right.
right.
Thanks, Yanni. Okay.
Is she watching this?
She's probably.
Oh my God, that pull on.
Well, and I mean, I just want to be like, I want to be clear, like, we have so many serious meetings, so, if we're a little bit funny, but that being said,
Let's
I
honor
mean,
her wishes.
So we gotta
this also, like, obviously, we all like paused on that. And so if we're going to fix all this zoning stuff, we might as well get it right. Okay. So then do we need to call a vote?
Did we have a first and a second on that? You did.
You moved, I said.
Yeah. So all those in favor for tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, next up, we've got ordinance 2023-24 by title only.
This is repealing and replacing chapter 1284.02 definitions A through B of the Yellow Spring zoning code.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, so, all right. You guys, you're a little bit loud in the back there. Shh. Okay. All right, so my understanding is this is just updating definitions based on prior ordinances. Okay, so I'll open the public discussion on this. Marianne?
Yeah, I have a question, I guess, for Johnny. Not about the definition of aid to construction, but when we were having the long discussion about changing the zoning, and you talked about the need for frequently to look at whether there is a capacity in the utilities or whether poles needed to be moved. And I thought you talked about the need or suggested that there might be a need to have a fee connected with that. And currently we don't have a fee, correct? So I guess so my concern is not about this particular ordinance, but that might be something we need to look at.
This way, correct me if I'm wrong, but we
said
said
we
that
will
we was
come
gonna
back.
talk about it and bring it back into the zoning fee.
That's correct. We discussed that it will be something that we will bring back to council, updating our zoning fees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we're adding aid to construction or an updated definition in this ordinance.
Correct.
We'll open the public hearing on it. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Housh.
Yes. Okay, 2023-25 by title only.
This is repealing and replacing Chapter 1284.09 definitions T through U of the Yellow Springs zoning code.
Yeah, can I get a motion? Moved.
Second.
Okay,
This is the item that stirred that the
Right.
conversation around the utility review. So the definition that's being added to this section is the utility review.
Okay.
And currently in this definition does not include a fee. We will come back to council asking for authorization to charge a fee.
okay. So otherwise, I'll open the public hearing. Any other questions or comments? Okay, going to close the public hearing. And Judy, let's call the roll.
Brown,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Housh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're into resolutions, and our first one up is 2023-35. Judy, let's go ahead and read that by title only.
All right, this is approving a pesticide policy for the village of Yellow Springs.
All right, can I get a motion?
Oh, to,
We haven't done anything yet, John. So I know you're going to speak. All right, can I get a motion? All right, I will make a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right, so Johanna, I know you've been wanting to speak.
Laura,
so-
can we get the explanation for what's before you, before,
Sure. Huh?
Carmen, did you want to do that, or I can
you do that?
give the quick and dirty?
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
So this has gone back and forth a great deal. It has gone through Environmental Commission. Councilperson Brown worked on this a great deal. It's pretty finalized. There's, at this point, one difference between the two versions. One names the village manager or designee as the point person when dealing with certain pesticide issues. The other names the Public Works Director. That is the point of disagreement. One follows the usual village reporting path, the other would be divergent from the usual village reporting path, hence the disagreement. And that is why, in my view, this needs to come before council for a determination as to how to word that attached pesticide policy. The rest of it has been, that is literally the last issue.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Couldn't the Public Works Director be the village manager's designee?
Yes.
Sure. And I think, related to that, I'll just elaborate on, what Judy has highlighted is, I think, the issue is it, ultimately the village manager's decision or the Public Works decision? There is a whereas that I don't really understand about the Environmental Commission being able to make a decision in a public health emergency, which,
That was, we took that, that's out of there.
okay, is that out of there? Good. But it was in the resolution as well, so I wanted to make sure we address that. Okay, so I think that's good. So remind me, is it Johanna or Johanna?
It's Joanna.
Joanna, okay.
I tell people it's like the Kool and Gang song, but pronounced or spelled like the Bob Dylan song.
Nice. Thanks.
All right, so Judy did a great job. Oh, Joanna Schultz, Environmental Commission, Joanna Schultz Herman. Judy did a great job explaining what the issue at hand is as far as the language about who it is that oversees the pesticide policy. And that is really the only thing that needs to be hammered out before this is voted on. I feel it's important. Well, basically, most of these policies, we use a template from Beyond Pesticides, which is the leading national organization for pesticide policies and advocacy in the country. And many cities and municipalities have adopted pesticide policies, apparently none in Ohio. And so we had to look to other states and comparable size municipalities to Yellow Springs to see how they implemented their policies. Most of them have a what would have been our CASP coordinator, a position for someone who's their sustainability coordinator. Yellow Springs does not have that yet. So we basically had to tailor it to what our needs are, or who we have in place. And given that the Public Works Director is who's using the pesticides, who is observing day in and day out what is working, like Johnny knows what he's doing every day, and what's working, what's not. And he's familiar with the Chapter 674 of the Weeds Ordinance, which includes a moratorium on the use of pesticides and herbicides on all village-owned land. And the Priscilla that was purchased for Ellis Pond was purchased despite having this moratorium in place. So we just feel that it's important that the person overseeing this program has hands-on experience and awareness of what our ordinances and laws and policies are. Is there anything you want to add to that, Carmen?
Well, I think that, the examples that we have, and I think that I may have provided some via email, I'm not sure, but of the places that we found, if they didn't have a CASP coordinator, if they didn't have a sustainability coordinator, it's under the purview of the Public Works Director. Now,
Right.
Obviously not superseding village, council period.
Right.
And then the city manager. That's that. And that's because this is a progressive policy,
Mhm.
because there are no municipalities of our size in the state of Ohio who have adopted a policy with an environmentalist lens. We're kind of doing it. I don't want to say from scratch, because we do have models, exemplary models from around the country in more progressive states like California, and I think I found one in Minnesota.
Mhm.
And in those policies, it's under the purview of the Public Works Director or the City Director of Public Parks, which is how it's worded in most of those municipalities.
I think it's also important, given the Public Works Department are who's going to be exposed and take on the health risks and of being exposed to these toxic chemicals. And I think having some autonomy in whether they want to use potentially cancer-causing chemicals in their day-to-day job, I think is really important to give agency to our Public Works Department.
So I guess so our charter makes it pretty clear that, in terms of administration, the village manager is the, final arbiter. So I wonder, can't we repair this by just highlighting that the Public Works Director, which I think would be involved in the decisions anyway? I'm not sure what the concern is, I guess, so.
Yeah, and
I think we would have to change the charter, really. I know you guys have been talking to our village solicitor about this, but I guess I'm confused about, Johnny's involved in all these decisions already. So what am I missing?
The Priscilla Corp was purchased despite having the moratorium in place by our village manager. And
By our village manager? Johnny, you were involved in that, so, yeah,
Okay.
okay,
I was unaware of that.
yeah.
So
Wait a sec, hold on, hang on a second. This is what's happening. Brought it up, whoever was involved in the purchase, if it is ultimately up to the village manager, either authorizing a purchase or making a purchase. We don't have Timbor in the polls because of the moratorium. So maybe maybe I'm just confused about that piece. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, regardless, like we have had this in the weeds ordinance, the Priscilla was purchased despite the moratorium, which indicates that there's a disconnect from village manager and Public Works Department for authorizing that purchase because it was in violation of the moratorium. That was recently passed in 2021.
Yeah.
Yes, there is in the appendix of chapter 674 of the weeds ordinance B.
This is an ordinance that was never passed. There is no moratorium.
Doesn't an ordinance mean that something is the law?
You can reference another ordinance. The ordinance references a moratorium that does not exist. So it's a false reference.
Why is
Pointed
it?
out very carefully to Nadia, so she's aware of that.
Nadia's not here.
But that's why you needed a pesticide policy. That's why the
Right.
pesticide policy thing came forth, was because everyone became aware, you know what, this reference to a moratorium, there isn't a moratorium. So we need a pesticide policy. So that's what this is doing. But I would say to just clarify processes, have Johnny or Josue speak about how the process went,
That would
the
be
discussion
great.
about purchasing pesticides, because, I mean, there seems to be a lot of confusion about it.
Okay, so I think that's what we should do. Johanna, if you want to let Johnny, why don't you come up? Because again, at this point, it's a policy decision about, who's the final arbiter. And so, all the work that Environmental Commission has done has been awesome. And I think most of it has been done by Nadia. So I don't want to, no, really? Oh, wow. Okay, so then maybe I'm wrong.
Most of what has been done by
up till
Nadia.
now, up till.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something. I thought Nadia had been behind this for years, but.
What, the
Yeah,
pesticide policy?
huh? But Johnny, go ahead.
Well, we'd have to go back about 4 years to really capture all this when we started putting into the bridges. And then all of a sudden, we got the invasive species, and we went the natural way. We started putting the barley bills out. We put the aeration pumps in there. We did bring it to council. We actually got it into the budget to be able to do this if the barley and that wasn't going to work.
Well, remember, this is not just about
Oh,
Ellis Pond.
I know, but
Okay.
it's referenced that the chemicals were bought illegally, basically. So we did all that. We actually brought it to council, to the workshop, to the budget session. It was approved. Then we sent out a memo that we was gonna do it, and then when we got ready to do it, I secured the bids. I talked to 5 pond experts. We've had many meetings out there. It was brought, it was explained. Then we went ahead and ordered the chemicals. No chemicals are still to this day have never been put into the pond. The aeration pump started failing when we gave notice, because we had to let the water drop down. We gave notice. Housh emailed the Environmental Commission. That went back and forth for a month. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then all of a sudden it was come to council and we stopped it. Still to this day, there's no chemicals that's ever been put in that pond. Still looks the same way it does 4 years ago. And we're keeping our end of the deal. For somebody to say that Housh ordered the chemicals, he approved the final purchase order. I'm the one that secured the quotes. I'm the one that secured the vendor. I'm the one that ordered the material, got the PO number, and was waiting to give the authorization. If council would have been delayed one more day, the weeds would have been taken care of.
So, yeah,
Yes.
so I did not know that this was going to come to council this time, because I did know that there was this disagreement. And I really do not want to have this happening at the council table now. We have had a lot of difficult times about this.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we need to pull out the garbage. And so what I had, when I saw it, I had assumed it had all been worked out. Well, it hasn't. And I really would like to table this now. I want it to come back to EC. I want it to go to staff, and I want it to come to council with everyone approving it. Or else I don't want it to come to council. I don't want to go through this.
So before we do that, I just want to, from your perspective, do you have any problem with the pesticide policy, despite the designee thing? Are you good with that, or do you think it needs more discussion?
I think if you make me the designee, you're telling Housh he's not the man.
Well, I'm saying
I'm
take that
saying
out.
Take that out.
I just want to know about the
Nothing
pesticide.
has changed, Carmen. I'll ask you this. Has anything changed since the last time that it come to council? Because one thing that's for sure, the longer we delay this, the longer we don't do anything about it, the faster the poles are rotting. I'm already 3 years behind on testing and treating the poles. And this allows us to treat the poles.
Right, and that's why this is in there. So it's the same. We just need to treat, so the pole treatment is the thing.
So I guess I feel like the only issue here is, there's an opinion that it should be, the public work director's responsibility, which I think changes our whole structure, versus the village manager, who I think works with our public works director. So that's why I don't want to table it, because I think we've got a good policy. I think we've worked on it, and yeah, and it's going to be hard for me to keep on tabling this and put it on the agenda personally. So that's where I'm at. So unless there's anything else I'm missing besides whether it's our village manager who's responsible for the village, or our public works director who works with our village
Well, let me ask
manager.
this.
Yeah.
Why was it on the agenda?
Because I asked for it not to be, but it was submitted regardless by the clerk, and the same with last time as well. So.
I don't think that, I think Johnny just told us it's because we need a decision.
Oh, you
I'm
wanted
falling
it to be
behind,
on?
yes. And that is the reason why when Carmen asked me if there's anything,
So,
because the Environmental Commission did the last time reject the treatment of the pole.
no, that did not
Well,
happen, Johnny.
Whether or not it did, I just
And-
wanted to pass so I can move on with the infrastructure.
If I may jump in, what's at the core of this dispute between the village manager, designee, or public works is the assumption that I alone ordered the chemical for Ellis Pond. That's the core issue. You've heard it from Johnny. We work as a team. It's how we approach most issues. In fact, I include some of you in my deliberations and the conversations. Materially, the way that we operate, we're still in communication about whether it's termites at the library or bed bugs at Lawson Place, you name it. We're having those conversations, not just by myself. I'm engaging my team in all that work. So I think that you have enough to move forward with option B, and I recommend that council move option B so that we can go about taking care of the business of the village.
I just want to clarify the point and ask, since I wasn't clear in my understanding, if the reason the weeds ordinance was passed in the first place was because a former village manager allowed the spraying of a toxic pesticide on the grass at Gaunt Pool. That was also another village manager? I'm looking for information.
That's correct, and that village
Okay.
manager quickly went away after that.
Right.
And that's what should happen if I do an activity that falls out of vision with council, I expect to go
Okay.
right away. I
I
have no issue with
appreciate the
that.
clarification.
Yes.
I was misinformed.
so what is the plan B?
The plan B is that
That's a-
the village manager is the ultimate decision maker.
So council's the ultimate decision.
Well, oh, yeah, on any, yeah.
Right.
I mean, right.
I thought the plan, if I read this right, unless I.
Option B was just, yeah.
Can someone just show us where that is, reference where it is in the document, just so when we're voting on it, if we're voting on it.
Where that language is in.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
got
yeah,
one
yeah.
following the other. You've got option A, option B.
Option A says village manager or designee.
So it's option
Section 7?
all through.
Yeah.
Oh,
So Josue, is that your understanding, or you mentioned option B, but.
Option B, so there's several areas that reference the village manager. There's this universal notification that remains the same on both options A and B, that the village manager is the universal notification appointee. And we're looking at section 7 of the pesticide policy, and that references conditions requiring use of pesticides, mitigation of pesticides. That's the section that
Got you.
it's in dispute.
Got you.
gee,
Okay, so it's, so you're advocating for option B, and I agree.
Option A.
Okay.
Option B.
Option B,
Option B.
because the section 7 is where the difference is.
Correct.
this is the
So-
only
But
thing. we're
it
talking about,
says
right?
village manager or designee.
Okay. So then,
Right, that's what we want.
Yeah, that's option.
all right, Marion, did you find it? Okay. So, I guess I have 2 amendments. So one is, Judy, what are you still doing?
Nothing.
Okay, great. So first of all, on that whereas, have we already repaired that about the Environmental Commission having like purview to do something in a public health emergency?
There are no public health emergencies. Those were all stricken.
Okay, that's gone. Okay, and then the second thing is, in that one section 8, it needs to say village manager or their designee. Because right now it says village manager, designee, and so there needs to be an or. So I guess I'm gonna ask for amendment to add an or to the designee. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Please just
Yep.
say again, because, I mean, there's so many things in here. Which exactly are you referencing?
So the version that, sorry to jump in here, but the version that Brian is talking about, you voting on right now is option B.
Section 8.
And the difference is in section, the first paragraph of section 7 is where it still makes reference to Public Works Director in option A. But I think, hold on, let me get the right option here. I think Brian might be right about that whereas clause. I think we still have it whereas we need to strike.
Well, it's actually in the policy itself.
Yes,
yeah.
it's in the policy itself. I did not catch it. If you're voting on pesticide policy option B, we need to go ahead and strike the fourth to last whereas clause.
I don't see an option B.
It's at the top of it. So I'm just going to talk this out loud, so
Yes.
we're all, just in case. So there are 2, the exact same policy, one after the next. So she's saying option B. So if you scroll down,
It's page 78 in my PDF.
are you using the package you sent or the PDF online?
I'm the clerk-based thing.
Yeah, so page, okay, scroll up.
Page 10 of that
Actually,
document.
that's,
Page 10 of that document, Marianne, will get you to the pesticide policy option
Okay, so
B.
here, right there. So this is option B.
Oh,
And there's the same thing above it, but just without the strike-throughs.
okay.
Okay, sorry.
And there's a whereas clause in there that needs to be
That's where.
stricken.
That's whereas number 7,
I counted from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And
Yep,
section
whereas
2?
number 7, yep.
whereas number 7, section 2.
Are you on?
Okay, can I ask a sort of separate question? Amy, this might be for you, sorry. So if the, like in the section 7, like B, if the council approves it anyway, like I'm trying to look for like an elegant solution here. Could we just take out the first part? Like the section, like A or the designee, that whole thing, and just, the council has to approve it anyway, so just, it's gonna come the way it always comes, but ultimately, I don't know, just a question.
So you're saying throwing out option A?
I mean, kind of
Yeah.
both, I guess, right? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think if I understand, we're picking option B and voting on it, but yeah, maybe
After we modify it.
yeah.
Can you just, is that,
Answer.
Amy,
I
does
don't
that
know.
work?
This
or
way,
no?
what are your thoughts on that, or Johnny?
I say no, because I don't want to have to come to council every time I need to treat a pole. So if you make it to where council has to approve it, then I have to,
Oh, that's an exception.
But it's an allowed material.
No, you're, the
Yeah.
pole treatment is an exception. You don't have to come. Yeah. You use your Timbor.
See?
We saw that, Johnny, as there being a situation akin to the termites. We found termites at the library. And we had to treat it right away. We have a mosquito with rotten iris in a designated spot. Those situations.
And you're striking that entire order.
I don't know. The whereas, yes.
Okay.
But now what Gavin's asking about is striking all of subsection A, section 7, subsection A.
I don't think we should be doing this at the council table. Johnny, we do not have a written moratorium. That's my understanding. There is no written moratorium. People thought there was, but there wasn't. And I don't think that this is where we have, this is very complicated. And to go back and forth, use the stuff on the polls. I don't know, I'm sorry that you misunderstood when you came to the Environmental Commission that we said, don't use it. Yeah, you should use that. That makes sense. And we used termite stuff at the library, and I have put Roundup on honeysuckle in the glass farm. We have been doing that.
But that's all in the policy. I mean, honestly, the only thing we're deciding is whether it's the village manager or the public works director and adding an or. So I don't know why, we need to bring this back for a third or fourth time.
Well,
I think
I
we
guess
can
for
make it.
me, I didn't think it was going to be in the packet because my understanding was that it wasn't going to be in the packet until everyone was in agreement. That was and I left and I came back, I saw it in the packet and I thought, oh, it's okay. And then I found out, no, it got put in for, I'm not sure why. So I haven't really read it through to be able to say, yeah,
You didn't read through the policy?
I have read it, but I didn't read it through this time because I was anticipating that we were going to table it.
The folks who've had their feet to the fire on this one, Carmen, Johanna, literally the one issue, and yep, we need to take that whereas out of there, but the one issue that was in dispute here was, who is that identified person going to be? And that's why I said council is going to have to make that determination, because we can't keep it circling the drain. There is simply disagreement as to who that person should be, which per this policy, if the policy itself says, well, if you're not figuring it out, take it to council. So it's coming to council.
So I'm compelled by Johnny saying he wants a decision. So I'm going to ask for a vote. So G, in terms of, do we need to vote on the amendment about the or?
No.
Okay.
No, that's just.
So we're just voting on the resolution?
Well,
I think the striking the whereas.
Okay. All right. So we need-
I'm sorry, Amy, did you actually, were you able to answer Gavin's question?
I was trying to look at his question.
Oh,
I was asking if we needed the issue in question at all. If we could just, it's coming to council for approval. Can it just be council approval?
So I think the reference to village manager or designee appears in several sections of the policy, not just in section 7, subsection A.
Yeah.
It's throughout it. So removing subsection A of that section 7 doesn't take that issue off the table, and then it leaves the policy a little incomplete, because that subsection A is where the village manager has determined that there's a pest that cannot be controlled using sustainable methods, right?
Right.
So if we take that out, then that step doesn't,
Wait, say that last part again?
So that subsection A is the section that says that the village manager or designee has determined that there's a pest that cannot be controlled using sustainable measures and least toxic pesticides, right? So that already has been determined in that subsection A. Then you get to the council approval to use something. So I think if
I
you
was
take
just-
out A, we've left a gap in the policy. So I would not, I do think you're making a substantial change to the policy by removing that. And we're not taking the village manager or designee issue off the table.
Okay, well, I mean, all the other ones, I think, at least below that, are just like things that would happen. They're not like, anyway, I was just trying to. It's cool.
Well, I will say passing a pesticide policy is a great thing. All right, so Judy, catch us up. Where do we need to get to, like, voting on something?
So if you move and second to strike the 7th whereas entirely
Of option B.
of option B.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to make that motion to strike that whereas.
I second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining. I'm
I'm
not
also
ready to
gonna
vote on
abstain.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we got 3 votes, and so then we can vote on the pesticide policy.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Name it option B.
Yeah,
okay.
so,
All right, so now we're gonna vote on option B of the pesticide policy. And Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
okay, so to be super specific about it, this would be passing a resolution adopting a pesticide policy. You have identified option B as the pesticide policy that you would like to pass with the one strike through. Let's go ahead and roll call. McQueen.
Abstain.
Housh.
Yes.
Brown.
Abstain.
DeVore Leonard.
I guess I'm gonna vote yes and just say that I hope that I totally like the pesticide policy, and I hope that we can all get along. Okay, that's all.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And this has been 5 years in the making, so I'm really glad it's happening. And yeah, and we're also being
Thank you,
consistent.
Carmen, for all of your work on this. As I understand, you were helping drive a lot of this. Thank you, Joanne. I mean, everybody who helped. Yay,
Yeah.
this is good for us.
Oh, there's been a lot of people working on it, and
Everybody else too, yes.
yeah. All right. Okay, so we're gonna move into resolution 2023-39. By title only, please.
This is amending the agreement for legal services.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We all worn out now.
Okay, yeah. We've got plenty to go. Okay, Mosway?
Thank you, Brian. I've got some news to share here. We have a change in the firm that is, sorry, let me backtrack. Amy Blankenship is moving over to Brickler and Eckler. We think it will be prudent for us to move over to Brickler and Graydon. Yeah, I think it provides us with not only our current solicitor, but it also allows us to tap into a much deeper and broader bench of local government services. So this resolution.
Or at least an equally broad bench.
Sorry.
Because I mean, you know, I think everyone remembers, like, it was a tight choice between those two firms, and they're both experts, so.
Yes, yes, I did not mean to in any way take from Frost Hatter Brown. I
Yeah.
think this is a good move for us. End.
So yes, I'm all in favor of this, I'm excited. But just, what is the relationship, or what's the distinction between Bricker and Eckler and Bricker Graydon?
I know there's a lot of law firm names being, my mother was here, she'd make a Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe joke. But I am currently with the firm of Frost Brown Todd, moving at the end of this month to Bricker Graydon, which up until April 1st of this year was Bricker and Eckler. They merged with the law firm of Graydon, what used to be Graydon, Henn Ritchie, and they have now become Bricker Graydon LLP. So that is the firm I will be joining at the end of this month. And even though Bricker and Eckler comes off the tongue because we've known it for so long, it is now Bricker Graydon.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we love you, Amy. Thank you. Okay, resolution 2023-40 by title only, please.
This is approving a contract with Game Time for installation of playground equipment at Gaunt Park.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. I don't know that we need to say a lot. We got a great recommendation from John Dobney, Greene County Parks and Trails. I trust Johnny. I know he's been doing some work. I did want to ask one question. Why do we need the engineered wood fiber for 3,000 as opposed to just using our own mulch?
That is a playground ADA spec.
Okay.
Even what's out there is engineered.
Okay. So when Mills Lawn laid their mulch, they
Is
use the same?
playground
Okay.
mulch.
So we don't do that?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Correct.
Thanks. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. 2023-41 by title only, please.
This is authorizing the village manager to prepare and submit an application to the U.S. Department of Transportation Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program for electric vehicle charging stations.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Josue?
Thank you, Brian. We're looking to do two things with this grant opportunity. We're looking to make some infrastructure improvement in areas that have been on our radar. To improve, examples of those would include, we'll be looking to undergrounding the power poles in front of the Mills Lawn on South Walnut Street. If you are driven by or walk by, you'll see that those poles are leaning. So working on a concept that would underground those poles and provide for EV charging stations in that location. We're looking to underground the power poles in front of the railroad lot and put in EV stations at that location, and also here the John Bryan Center and the cemetery lot. So those are the concepts that we're working through. And in terms of budget perspective, we want to maximize our opportunity to be successful in grants. We want to give ourselves room to go up to $1.2 million with a matching fund request of $200,000. It's a 20% match. And I've put in a summary report of what the opportunity is. This is separate from what the state is doing around electric vehicle charging infrastructure. This year, they awarded EV charging infrastructure around the interstate system. Next year is for state routes. So that's another opportunity that'll be coming up later in the year that we'll be looking to apply. They have two very different functions. This one focused on infrastructure. The one with the state will focus on EV chargers themselves. So you need to have infrastructure in place to support this. Any questions? I put in a memo on the grant opportunity.
Marianne?
No.
Oh, I thought you said yes.
Scratching
Gavin, go
my
ahead.
So just so I'm clear, if we do this, are we doing something separate for the recs? Like if we do that, if we did this and don't do the recs, then we're committing $200,000 now, or is there going to be some chance to do it later? Or should we just do the recs first so that we know we have the money?
Yes, and I put a statement around that. So some of these projects, because we're pairing them in infrastructure, we strongly encourage and emphasize the use of rec net proceeds for this. But if those are not available, then we would look to use our infrastructure funds for these improvements.
So yeah, we would be committing 200,000 now without any rec guarantee. So one of the things that Marianne asked about last time was whether we had a revenue generating perspective on this. So I am curious, as we expand this, are we always thinking this is cost neutral, beyond the 200,000, or are we thinking about recouping?
Yes to the second part of the question, that the way the EV grant applications allowable expenses are set up, we can ask for maintenance and improvement dollars into the future, up to a 5-year period. The Ferguson Group and AMP has put together these concept plans on how we can structure our application to do that. So this grant opportunity will pay for future maintenance up to 5 years of the equipment. So that alleviates the burden on us for licensing and other maintenance issues with the equipment. The way that with Amy's insights, we structure the EV charging business model is that we're recovering our cost. I think the future, as more EV charging becomes more common and we have more vehicles use, there is a potential to have a revenue source. But currently, we are structuring our rates to recover our expenses. If council at later time wants to create some program income or some net profit, we could do that. But right now, the rate at which we're charging the electricity is almost comparable to what it cost a internal gas combustion engine to fuel up. Amy, did I miss anything on that part? So we're trying to stay at the same level of.
But is there any restriction if we take this grant to like up our recoupment of costs?
The expectation is that whatever EV infrastructure we put in, that we are charging its use, that we are going to be charging for the kilowatt usage of those EV charger stations. So what we set that rate, yes, we have flexibility what we set that rate to.
Okay.
And it's comparable to just a regular car?
Our current rates are, yes. Our current rates right now are at 38 cents a kilowatt, 34 cents a kilowatt hour. When you compare it to what is it charged per gallon, it's comparable.
Mary Ann and Gavin?
Yeah. Is there a reason to assume that we would have to pay the 200,000 before we sell the RECs?
Before we sell the RECs? Well, I think that'll depend on council and what
Yes.
future action it takes.
Right.
If we were to submit this grant, we'll be looking at a 2024 program execution. So there's some time for council to decide what to do about RECs.
Okay.
Gavin?
Well, I guess I just wanted to clarify, the way you framed it, I'm open to the idea of the sale of RECs. I think, and I think it, the idea of it in this context makes sense to me. I think I hadn't thought about it until now, the idea of the timing of them. Just saying, if for some reason we didn't do the RECs thing, then is this like jumping the line in front of other projects that are more timely or more important? That's all.
Sounds like Johnny's ready to hop up.
So Railroad Street, in order to make that a developable lot in the front, this project would help with the cost of that. It'll be more bang for its buck because we're only putting in 200,000 and 1.2 million. The poles on Walnut Street needs to be done. And so we're hoping that this will offset that cost as well, be able to get some better system there. The only one that I would say is probably above and beyond any other projects would be Cemetery Street. But if we can get the money, we might as well do it now. So 3 out of the 4 projects is an RDN.
So does that mean you're supportive of if we decided to use RECs for this?
Yes.
Okay.
And I made that perfectly clear to Housh.
All right, because I know you're.
This is, I'll get on my horse here. This is what I think the cell REC should be used for, is infrastructure.
Right. Okay.
That makes
And I've
sense.
said that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And this touches on it touches on infrastructure, economic development, the decarbonization of our transportation system. It touches on all the things that we value as a community.
Okay, can I, follow up on that? So just to be clear, I understand they're RDNs, and if it's an RDN in this context, does that mean it's so clearly important that it's going to be budgeted, it's going to be a very likely budget priority regardless? I understand that correctly? Okay.
But it'd be great to have rec money.
Okay. Anything else? So 2 things. One is if we agree to go after this grant, make sure to look at what we did with the recent raise grant, because, you know, we had a lot of good quantitative data around the things that they're looking at in terms of equity and whatnot.
Yes.
And we did a lot of work on that. And then the other thing that I was thinking about is, and I know we're not voting on a rec policy tonight, but you referenced later, so I'll just mention it while I'm thinking about it, that we could also use funds for the utility roundup, but that doesn't seem to be contemplated in that rec policy.
Yeah, it is. It's in there.
It's mentioned on the high end, but it's not like one of the like.
But we're not talking about the rec policy.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, while I'm thinking about it, because, you know, I imagine we'll, you know, be going late. So, but anyway, but that's not an issue on this. Okay, anything else? Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I think we got one more, which is 2023-42 by title only.
This is authorizing the village manager to apply for grant funding for years 2 through 5 of the body worn camera initiative.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
All right, so as you know, we received a grant award for implementing body-worn cameras through the state. That grant award does not have a commitment for future maintenance of those body-worn cameras. We committed to council when we initially applied for that grant that we will explore opportunities to continue funding our body-worn camera program. This is another funding source that we're looking to apply to continue its maintenance of the body-worn cameras. We still plan to apply to the state opportunity later in the year. This gives us another door, another opportunity to try to pursue to keep the body-worn cameras program fully funded and coming from other sources and not our general fund.
so I love this. There was a mention of 25, 25, 50, 75. That's not quantified. So what do those matching amounts look like?
If it costs us about $14,000 a year, that's the tapering of the cost that we would have to cover. So first year will be 25%, second year 25%,
Off of 14,000.
14,000 a year.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and we'll come back for citizen concerns. Which, by the way, we're allowed to do by charter, so.
Why did I think it was 7?
Oh, okay.
Wait,
7-minute break.
7-minute break?
Exactly.
Seven minutes.
Maximum 7 minutes.
Okay, good. You know, it's not bad to take that 7-minute break every once in a while, I think. So, yeah. So I'm sure we all feel refreshed, and this is the time on the agenda for citizen concerns. So up to 3 minutes on anything that's not an agenda item. So do we have any citizen concerns? Mark?
Hi, my name's Mark Heiss. I'm the president of the chamber, and I'm here making a visit with one of our members. And the village has been a member for quite some time. And I just want to say, Brian and Josue, when the village was evaluating energy aggregators for the electrical systems, we met with community energy advisors, which has a program which is sustainable, the chamber energy program and chamber sustainability program. You'll see a letter from me coming out in the next day or two about a webinar on June 6th that will allow chamber member businesses to contact these folks at the sustainability program, and whether or not they are presently using their aggregated services or not, they will come in and they will evaluate whether or not your business or municipality or organization is a good candidate for sustainable and affordable solar energy placement, as well as do an energy audit of your buildings and assist you in putting in LED lighting. The numbers that I saw when I met with them last week showed zero or almost zero net coming from the businesses or organizations to actually be able to put solar on their buildings and make their buildings sustainable. So I think it's something that the village should look into. I think financially it would be a good thing. And if anybody is watching for businesses, I will encourage them as I send my letter out next week, or I'm sorry, the next couple of days, about this program, to take advantage of it, because it looks like you can get free solar. It really does.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Any other citizen concerns? Okay. So we're going to move into special reports, and Amy Kemper, I think you're going to tell us about our great financials with a qualification on how things look for the rest of the year.
Yep. First quarter 2023 is what we're looking at. We had revenues of $1.2 million ahead of budget as of the end of March. We're looking at, scroll down a little maybe. And that's not unusual. We get a lot of revenue early in the first quarter. We also get our half of our property taxes in March and the other half in September. So we end up ahead in revenue. We also budget revenue conservatively because we have to, because of the county commission. So just to temper that for a second. How are we doing? So expenses.
More than 7 minutes, man.
Expenses are $430,000 less than budget as of March, and that's actual expenses, not encumbrances. We budgeted a loss of $4.3 million for the first quarter of 2023, and we actually ended up with a $207,000 gain. And like I said, there's a lot of timing that goes into that. Our budget is actually just 1/12. And there is some cyclical aspects to our revenue. We also have seasonal staff coming on for pool and all the lawn and fun stuff that happens in the summer. And so there'll be additional salary expenses that you aren't seeing in the first quarter. Plus we had a lot of open positions for maintenance that are now filled as of April and May. So you're going to start seeing us catch up on those expenses. I do work with Finance Committee, and we look at budgeted revenue versus actual revenue every month so that they kind of have a general idea of what we think might be a little, where we might be gaining or losing revenue at, so it's not a surprise as we move through the quarters. Statement of cash from revenue and expense. This is a two-pager. It just takes each fund and it says, where were we in the beginning of the year with cash and where are we going to end up at the end of the year with cash? This one's a little misleading right now because in Q1, we're looking at actual expenses and actual revenue. And so I know a lot of projects we have are encumbered January 1 for the whole year. And that might be 1.2 million, but the revenue comes in 12 increments. So it looks like our cash, if you look at the second page of it, beginning cash balance was 10.9 million, 11 million essentially, and it went to 11.2 million as of the end of 3/31. There's 4.9 million in encumbrances though. So we are encumbering those big projects that span more than 1 year, sewer relinings, all that fun stuff, stormwater things, the things that Johnny does. And so our cash balance at the end of the quarter, if we include the encumbrances, which are those things we've committed to, is down to 6.3 million. Does that make sense so far?
What page are you on?
I'm just starting revenue analysis. There you go, right there. So the revenue analysis just takes the same thing. We go through each fund, beginning of the year, what we budgeted for, what we've actually done so far, and what we've encumbered. So what we've committed to by the end of the quarter. And so we've encumbered 51% of our expenses, which we kind of expect to. So anytime we sign a contract, we encumber the entire amount because that's the commitment we've made to that. And so many of our purchase orders are open for the whole year, like I said. And so we would expect that we would only have 25% of our expenses, which we kind of do for actual, but we have encumbered up to 51% of what we budgeted, which is a good thing. That means these projects are actually going to get done because they're in a PO and they're ready to go. So I'm on the bank. Keep going. There you go. Bank report. Not to stomp on Judy's treasurer report, but we started with 10.9 million, $11 million at the beginning of this year. We brought in revenue of 1.8 million for the month and 4.1 million year to date, which is March 31st. Expenses year to date, 3.9 million. And so our ending balance is 11.2 in cash. Like I said, we do have a quarterly, or we get a semi-annual property tax of about 600,000 that hits us in March. So that kind of needs to be spread out for the rest of the year. We'll get it again in September. So like I said, ideally our budget would be cyclical like our expenses are. We'll get there, maybe not this year, but next year. So, because we know when they come in general. Utility roundup. So we started the utility roundup program at the beginning of the year with a fund balance of $15,000, and we brought in 1,700 in January, 171 in February, and 679 in March, and we spent almost $4,000 over the first 3 months to take that fund down to $12,000. We have 444 participants, or 20% of the village that donates, and we had 15 applications in the first quarter. So we went, like I said, we went from 15,000 down to 12,000, which is what we kind of intended when we allowed people to apply twice a year instead of once a year. So you'll see in the supplemental next council meeting, we're going to ask for more expenses on that because we're actually spending more than we budgeted for this year. But it's I think, the right thing, a good thing. The last page is just council commissions. There's not a lot going on in the first quarter. We had some appropriations and some purchase orders for Earth Day and a few other things, but not a lot of expenses so far. They did come through in April and May, so you'll see them the next time. So you'll see that encumbrance column, but you don't see a lot of year-to-date expenses,
So Amy, on that 10,000 encumbrance, so that includes Earth Day. Does it include the 5,000 that we committed to YS Pride?
Nope, that's not in there yet. That was voted.
And
afterwards.
I assume it does not, well, obviously it doesn't include anything we decide around street fair or like the other events.
So you had literally, this is a little misleading because we had an open PO at the end of 22. You had $25,000 for 2023 to spend. 9,000 of it is encumbered right now, and that's for codification services, Earth Day, and those are the only two that are encumbered right now. So Pride would be another 5 that will happen. probably
Okay.
towards the end of May before we book it.
So codification, that's like, Judy, where we do the,
That shouldn't be coming out of council commissions.
There's something in contractual services that was it said codification. I'll look it up. I'll double check.
Okay. But presumably, given the trend that council's taking, we're going to have to add to our council commission budget, right, for events?
It depends, yeah. I mean, that's my caution to you of $25,000 for the year, and I think we've committed like 8,000 so far between Earth Day and then another 5 for Pride.
Mhm.
So there's 13, so we have 12 left.
Okay.
We go back, this is just for me, and like, there was a line item, 600 and something, that was the broadband. Can we go back to that?
How far back?
Oh, I don't know.
Is
There
it
was
in the
like-
broadband fund?
Yeah,
Is it revenues or
yeah,
expenses?
yeah. No,
Revenue?
so it's 600 and something broadband is the number, okay, so there it is.
Yeah, so we have the broadband
fund.
is a municipal enterprise and we book
Sure.
revenue and it has revenue.
150,000 is the budget for the year.
150,000 is the budget for the year, and then,
Oh,
Did you find it?
is the expense. Okay, there it goes. Are you asking about the revenues for that?
There's
enterprise?
no expense budgeted for broadband this year because it's all granted still. So it's revenue only for 2023.
Mhm.
okay, and what's that number? There it is. So the revenue is 2,138.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
we just started billing for it in what, February?
Yeah, January bills paid February 15.
Yeah, so we've gotten money in for 3 months, maybe. Well,
It would
this
be-
is March 31st, so 2 months maybe,
For 2 months in here, yeah.
for 75 people maybe, or
Now we have 67, but those are coming in, that's of last week. So you're going to see those revenues come in as we're many
67.
more.
67.
Customers.
Okay,
Customers.
gotcha. All right, thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Amy? Actually, I do have one more question. Okay, so now I was trying to do my own projection, around sort of, how we've done this quarter, knowing that first quarter is always a positive, knowing we've got 4.9 million encumbrance, and then just kind of thinking about, you mentioned the property tax and our expectations around income tax. So right now, what would you project that we're gonna lose 2 million out of the general fund, or?
So we budgeted a $4.1 million loss for 2023. And
Okay,
I think we can come way closer to a $2 million loss at worst. Yeah.
2 million.
Yeah, because I think
okay.
our revenues are under budgeted even for RETA. Reciprocal tax is going to start coming in.
Okay,
And we did the utility rate hike. We don't even really know. I mean, I know the percentages, but that just kicked in as well. So we're just starting to see that additional revenue. And I don't think so I did do a cash flow analysis. I think Gavin got to look at it in Finance Committee. And I think we're really going to be about $1 million ahead easily.
but probably about a 2 million loss.
If expenses are, yeah, because we had those open positions as well. So,
Good.
And the finance committee is going to get an early view of the tax budget at its next finance committee meeting.
what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, and then that just to put it on your radar, the tax budget comes to council in June.
June
20th,
yep.
June 20th for submission to the county in July. We submit our tax budget in July.
Right. Well, I think we're glad that things look better than we thought last year. But I guess I also want to make sure that, folks recognize it's not all rosy. So,
Well, Johnny's got a lot of big projects and
Yeah.
anything that has a co-insurance or a co-payment to a grant, we have to figure out where that's coming from. So, yeah, absolutely.
okay. Thanks, Amy. All right, Judy, treasurer's report.
All right, well, Amy gave you a nice little preview there. So we, as of March 31st, we have under active investment $11,223,911, and that is an increase of $227,243 since January. And that's the combination of Star Ohio, Raymond James, and West Banco accounts. Interest earnings from January 1 to March 31 are $70,520 for Star Ohio, $17,884 for West Banco, and $8,325 for Raymond James. Comparing that annually, our total interest income for 2022 was $146,384. So we're on a good trajectory this year, especially given that we've got the locked return rate with West Banco at 4.95, so we can just haul funds over from Star Ohio if there's a drop in the federal interest rates, which doesn't look like it's about to happen anytime super soon. Star Ohio played a fairly small role in 2022 income from investment, and that should reverse for 2023. We're just correcting on upwards. The rate should stay above 5% at least through September in all likelihood. And then you've got your charts with cash balances, letting you know what's in West Banco, Raymond James, Star Ohio. Currently, December 31, 2022, December 31, 2021. As you notice, Star Ohio looking all pathetic there. That's made a pretty significant comeback. You've got the information from Brad Drager regarding coupon rates. There are, I don't think there's anything super new, just the Star Ohio, I'm just enjoying watching it go. March 31, it was 5.17. And on last Thursday, it was 5.2, and it's just chugging along there. And then I, just for fun, gave you that the 1 year Treasury historical annual data, and that is just super interesting to look down from 2023 and move backwards to 2019. Kind of lets you know what a very interesting ride it's been.
So Judy, am I reading it correctly that in first quarter of 2023, we've gained about 95,000 from our investments versus the 146 or whatever thousand from last year?
For the entire year, yes, correct.
So actually, I think you could have said we're not just tracking, wow, that looks really good.
Well, I didn't want y'all going out buying ponies right away.
Okay,
So.
well, maybe just one. And then maybe a recommendation, I wonder if we, just because 268 page packets look scary,
I know.
maybe we find a way to package all the great info from Drager, just with a link or whatever. And actually Josue could figure out how to put it on SharePoint or something, I don't know, but just, I don't know.
I totally agree.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great information and
Yeah.
stuff.
It's great read, yes.
But maybe we pull that out of the main packet and just, people can find it if they want to. But yeah, but anyway, we are almost half of, well, we're 2/3 of what we earned last year. That's amazing in the first quarter. Okay.
Just as somebody who's on the finance committee, we don't do updates very often, but just to say, I feel really good about how the, finance information gets shared. This is no small thing. It takes analysis and work to identify these opportunities. So they're working for us, and the dollars are working for the community as a result. So just to flag that, I appreciate it. It's going well.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. Okay, anything else? All right, then I think we're at the manager's report.
Great, thank you. There's significant amount of information in the manager's report, but I'll bring up the top burning issue. I've included a memo about e-scooters. There's a question for you there. Is that something that you see as an issue in the downtown? If so, what would you want us to come back to you with? So that'd be one important one.
Well, let's just stop there. I have several thoughts, but does anyone want to comment on that, Mary Ann?
Well, yeah, I appreciate that you included that. because when I saw in the paper that that was going to happen, it seemed like, wow, it's cool that local guys are doing this. And on the other hand, what's that going to be, especially downtown, sidewalk, road. So, yeah, I think it's something that we need to figure out. And I'm not sure that it makes sense to have the Active Transportation Committee work on that, but that was one thought. At any rate, I do think that it would be good to actually get Terry Lawson and his brother involved in thinking about it and have that, however that happens, not happen at a council meeting. But I think, and also I had sent information to the Active Transportation Committee, and Chris Bongiorno has had experience in this, and I think would be a useful person in this regard to help think about that.
He has experience with e-scooters?
That's his.
He's an active transportation consultant.
And he's
Worked
done that.
in Cleveland and now works statewide.
He's been doing that in other places.
So e-scooter-
Bigger
e-scooter stuff,
places.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I want to underscore, there were a lot of things like, I mean, I did not want to red flag it, because again, like I love the entrepreneurship piece and it sounds great, but, we were asked a year and a half ago by Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission if we had any micromobility, ordinances in place. So I guess I'm really surprised, and I feel like I fell down on the job, honestly, on a lot of things. I'm surprised, one, that mobility devices apparently are not supposed to be on the trail. So basically, all our folks that are, in those mobility devices using the trail could technically, I guess, be cited. I mean, that is really surprising to me,
Right.
because most communities like accommodate that. The second thing is, I can't believe, I'd rather have a skateboard behind me than a scooter, on the sidewalk. And so I'm surprised that we have not thought about that. And so I think we've got to address that, because, we definitely, given the experience that most people have for using scooters in other places, they can be on the sidewalks, and that's because they're bigger cities, they have more room. Obviously, we've got to think about the fact that most people are used to just tossing the scooters off to the side, wherever, and not bringing them back. And I know the Lawsons have contemplated that, but unless that's really actively encouraged, I think the behaviors for people that are visiting that use those devices, they're going to be thinking about it differently. So I actually think this is a huge priority for us to address, because it could become a major issue. I think there's a lot of positives, but I mean, there could be a lot of negatives, and, it can be dangerous. And again, I'm not sure why we're not treating these things, I guess, in kind of an equitable manner. So anyway, I guess I definitely am throwing in that, we need to address this as soon as possible. And I agree with Mary Ann, we want to involve all the folks around that.
So we can break this up into different components of it. So there's the bike path piece, which I think it's relatively easier to address. I don't think anybody felt on the job. It's just something that we weren't looking at. That predates you, predates me, I think predates most of us here. So that's one that we can work on. Any other thoughts on the downtown sidewalks? And again, I want to reiterate that we're coming at this from a proactive approach. I love what the Lawsons are doing. I think it's going to be very creative and useful amenity for our community, both residents and visitors. Right. But there is this piece that right now we don't allow skateboards or any of these devices on the downtown sidewalks.
And sorry to interrupt, but one other thing I just want to mention is, based on what Josue mentioned, e-bikes apparently are not allowed on our segment of the trail, which is contrary to state law. So we got to fix that for sure. So go ahead.
Sorry, I was just a clarification, Brian. When you mentioned equity concern, were you talking about compared to skateboards and stuff? Or what did you mean by
Yes,
equity?
that, and then also, I mean, our folks that are, need mobility devices, like, I mean, they should be able to use a trail and, whatnot. Like,
Okay,
I've
so-
always thought about like, it's walking, biking, rolling. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
But you're saying there's an equity issue on having mobility devices using the trail, not that there was some equity concern about e-scooters
Correct.
related with the sidewalks.
Yep.
Okay.
We have whole tiny motorcycles being driven around in the daytime and the nighttime. There are kids on on motorcycles. And there are motorized bikes in town now, quite a few. And I know it's not the same, but I mean, we need to have a discussion about how this is going to be regulated. And I know that there are some talks about the brothers hiring someone specifically to go and pick the scooters up on a rotation.
Yeah.
During the day. So that's also been part of the conversation. But we also have to think about,
And I agree with you. I think, to me, the distinction is on the side, being clear,
On the
like
sidewalk,
what's on the
right.
sidewalk versus not. I mean, I think our roads can like handle. I mean, yeah, I love skateboarders, like, trucking
Yeah.
down Dayton Street. That's great. So. Okay.
So legislation?
So
Well, discussion, but yeah.
just to the point, I guess I look at it like, this to me would fall in the category of like something that, from like a priority standpoint, the parts that, like the mobility stuff on this trail, that sounds obvious to me. I hope it's easy.
Yeah.
I guess I would just like, if this becomes some like, opens up some big can of worms that takes a whole lot of time, I guess I'd like to flag it. Just because my natural thought is not that this is a major priority or that it's a major problem. If it comes up, obviously, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there are some lines of delineation here. There's open roads, one thing, certainly the downtown area in general should be treated differently, or there's the roads in downtown, in the major central business district and or the sidewalks. And just like a lot of these things, we have a commission or a group of folks with deeper and broader expertise to weigh in on these things, and whether the active transportation group is still meeting on a regular basis, or if they could just be
Meeting on Wednesday. It is meeting regularly and on Wednesday.
so perhaps
So it seems like it might be an active transportation thing.
Yeah, I think.
I don't think necessarily. There's the piece, the e-bikes on the trail that I feel like that's resolved. We're ready to come back to correct that issue. I think on the e-scooters piece, right now, there's restrictions on skateboards and other devices on the sidewalks on the downtown.
Right.
Do you want to treat this as you do those other things? No, let them be on the sidewalk. Or there's a third option is, let's wait and see.
No, I think
Let's
that
wait and see.
Marianne maybe mentioned it not being or being an active transportation thing because of Chris's expertise.
I made a suggestion that the Active Transportation Committee could weigh in
I was
on
just
it
trying
and
to
make.
get clear on that.
Yeah, and I think, the YS News article, the Lawsons, I think, assumed that they were not allowed on the sidewalks. I mean, that's the way I read that article. So the fact that that's not the case, I think that's one thing to repair. But that was referenced, but I think besides Chris Bongiorno, the other person on the AT committee is Eric Oberg, who's been in this space for 12 years and has seen some of those things. So I love tapping into that expertise. But yeah, I agree with everyone. Let's resolve the trail thing ASAP. And then I don't think we should just wait. I mean, I think we should collaborate on how we avoid an issue.
John?
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation that can be had with the Lawsons. These things are GPS tracked. There may be something in their system to where if we put a restriction, that they don't work in that restricted area. And that could be a conversation that could happen with the Lawsons.
Yeah, they don't work that well. I know because I've ridden plenty of e-scooters on sidewalks that you're not supposed to. I'm just,
Not a deal with
no, I'm just saying the GPS isn't that, it's not that.
Talking about geofencing.
Yes, I could.
Oh, yeah, that part they already said, right? We aren't gonna, they said they were gonna cap them at, they wouldn't go too far out. I thought you were talking about in terms of the sidewalks.
If we restrict them and they have a geofence, then they could be able to limit, they could be able to help us.
Yeah.
For them.
Mark, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that they can.
Real quick, Carmen, you make an excellent point. Having owned brick and mortar on Main Street, I can tell you that there are kids on motorcycles that come down those sidewalks, think I'm ripping through there on the sidewalk. This is a problem far more than you think it is, and it really does need to be addressed on our sidewalks, whether that's through enforcement, treating it the way we treat any type of wheeled vehicle that's not necessary for mobility. It is a serious problem.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Okay, so more conversation on the e-scooters, possibly other devices. We'll bring something back on the bike path, and maybe at the next agenda planning, we can talk about discussion around e-scooters, because I think there'll be more conversations. Does that sound?
Yeah, and I guess I'll just flag, I would be interested to hear more about the parking thing. That to me, as my understanding, has been like one of the biggest challenges in other communities, is when people just like
Where do
fling
they
their
leave them?
scooters wherever, and
Yep.
so that'd be nice to know about.
Okay. All right, there's plenty more in my manager's report. I'll get briefly on the broadband request. So I've included several documents in there, and Scott has joined us, and Scott's one of the team members for the broadband program. So Scott, feel free to jump in at any point if I miss anything. So I'll give you a brief overview of where we are. The fiber installations we've had 90 fiber drops. That's fiber dropping from poles to homes and businesses, of which 71 of those have the box on the outside and necessary equipment. 67 of them have been provisioned and are fully connected to the internet. They're receiving internet service from us. Many of those are being reflected in our utility bills. They're getting their bills, they're getting paid. We have 142 total subscribers. We have reduced our efforts to market and get more signups because we want to take care of those 142 customers right away. Our new timeline is to get them connected within the 6 weeks. We've had a serious conversation with our municipal our broadband contractor. They're committed to getting the rest of those 142 subscribers connected online in the next 6 weeks. What does the broader network look like? We've built 9.5 miles of fiber in the village. Every home that we pass by, it has been engineered, the poles have been engineered to be able to connect those. So we have a total of over 600 homes and businesses that are serviceable. That means that as the fiber has ran through the power poles and near those locations, the fiber has been spliced to be able to connect that location. So that's 675 locations in the village. What money have we used to do this? Grant money. We used $250,000 from the state broadband office to fund this operation. So the village, in this municipal fiber, has not contributed cash. We've contributed our resources, our times. Kevin, you've been part of those meetings. Brian, you've been part of those meetings. I've been part of meetings. Johnny's joined in some of those conversations. So that's what we've contributed to the project, is our time, our expertise, and those non-cash resources. What's ahead of us is we're looking at BEAD money that's going to become available towards the end of this year through the state and following next year. So we'll be looking at that broadband money that the federal government distributed to the state for grant-making opportunities. We were highly recommended for an application that we submitted to the state, but they simply ran out of, to the feds, but they simply ran out of money. Otherwise, we would have potentially received almost $3 million to build out the entire project. But we were not successful in that grant, not because our application wasn't good, simply because the Department of Commerce ran out of money. And that's been the case for several other applications that we've submitted. So that's the broadband and update in a nutshell. I've included the pro forma. I've included the financial details, what it will cost to build out based on 2021 numbers. Obviously, those numbers will need to be tweaked to reflect 2023. But the team did a really good analysis on what it will cost to build out the network. Carmen?
Yeah, so there are 600 and what?
72?
672.
75.
75 that are potentially serviceable.
Correct.
There are 100 and how many dropped wire?
142 have subscribed. They signed
100?
up.
142 have subscribed.
Some signed up. 90 have fiber that comes to their home. or
90
business.
has fiber that come to their home, and how many of that total are contributing to, who are actually getting service?
As of last week, 67 are getting internet service in their home through us.
So I think I guess in your opinion, is there something that the village could do better to get more people signed? I guess, like, is there a different approach to getting people on board with the broadband?
There's two parts to that response. One is actually physically connecting, and we've done a couple of things to increase our capacity. One is Dan Badger is taking the training to do fiber terminations,
Okay.
and we'll be terminating some fiber, and we're investing in equipment. Also, we've met with the Fairlawn gig, which is a municipal fiber program that we modeled our program to. So we'll be visiting their location. We also, through our meetings, we learned a couple of tricks that they use to expedite their installation. So they invested in pre-terminated cable in all their field installations so that no one is on the field cutting fiber and
Right.
splicing fiber. They're just pre-terminating cable. It costs more money, but for them in their cost benefit analysis, the time saving that they were saving by not splicing on the field made up for how fast the roll-up of the program.
Okay.
So those are a few things that we'll be implementing after we get the 142 connected, because we've got a contractor that's committed and obligated to the remainder of these fiber installations. Once that we get there, we will resume the marketing component to get more subscribers, because we need to hit that 250 milestone for our grant, and then we've got this 675 capacity we got in the pilot area that we can
What's the
connect.
timeline for that? Is there a timeline for
6
hitting that
weeks.
250?
That we need to hit it by the end of the year.
Okay.
Obviously, want to do it sooner.
So related to 672 is what I wrote down for the report, but accessible, so is the idea that like we can do it, but we don't have the, I guess, funds or capacity to do it yet? Is that the deal?
That's part of it. One, we limit our bottleneck is being able to install this 142. We only have money to do the 250.
Gotcha.
Beyond that, we need to either self-finance through the revenue fees that we're getting, borrow the money, or get a grant to do the rest. From the financial perspective, this program was designed, the performer was designed around us borrowing the entire amount of money to do it. A cost-benefit analysis showed that it would make money in the long run. We have built about a third of our overall network right now.
Yeah.
675 homes, it's about a third of our overall network. So it's a substantial build out already. Getting those 675 connected will generate enough revenue that we can slowly expand out. I think we're gonna hit that point that slowly expanding isn't gonna be viable because the demand is here already. So if we could build this over the next couple months, we'll have the customers. So we'll be when we get to that 250, and looking at the grant resources that are available, we'll need to make a decision. Hey, do we keep applying and try to get free money, or do we borrow some money to invest in the build out of the network.
Right.
Now-
And just, I want to make sure everyone knows Dan Badger is the current owner of the hardware store. So it's great to invest in like that local resource, not to mention having, Thor and Scott and, other folks.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to like continue this because we've got a lot of on the agenda, but is there anything urgent that people have on?
I'll just
broadband?
close out that we have a great team of volunteers supporting on that. We have 2 on the screen, Scott Fife, Thor Sedge, we have Timothy Barnhurst, Meg Logan, Carlos. Yeah. So we have quite a number of people that, obviously Dan Badger, so we have a strong team supporting this.
Okay. So this kind of segues into, I wanted to make sure the council was up to date on all the grants that we have out there. Because didn't we do a broadband grant recently?
So you and I worked on the Sharon Brown's grant application.
Yeah, okay, so we
we've
have
got-
that like earmark.
Yeah.
And then besides broadband, do you want to just highlight any other grants we have in the mix?
Yes, we have our $25 million RISE grant with the feds. We've done well in 2 rounds. We hope that the 3rd time is a charm. We've got water meter grant out that we hope to have a response and announcement on that soon. I'll make a list. Do we have any other ones, Johnny? We're looking for all those opportunities.
Well, we've got Raise and Rise.
Raise
so I
and
know-
Rise,
yeah.
right? We have the 3D printing. Yes.
Yep.
Soon to be the EV chargers.
Cool. All right. A lot of good things in the fire. Any other questions on the manager's report? All right. Yeah.
So when do you expect that we would have a conversation about expansion?
Expansion, in 6 weeks, we expect to be at 142. That's when we're gonna have a good idea of how we're gonna get to the 250. Thor and I spoke a couple weeks ago about applying for the state BEAD money. So we're certainly are talking about expansion now and looking to apply for more funding. When, Thor, I don't know if you can hear me when I'm mic on, I think just managing expectation and the timeline. If we have, probably we're now close to June, 6 months, and 6 weeks will be middle of July. So probably August, September, we'll be looking at hitting that 250 homes. Thor, that I think I need to unmute you. Hold on, give me a second. Hi, Thor, you can unmute.
Yes, thank you. I believe that 6 weeks is a really great number, and we're hoping for better performance than that to get our initial subscribers signed up. But looking forward to an opportunity to apply for NTIA grant funds to fund the expansion of the network. So I don't know if there was a specific question I needed to answer.
I was just saying about the timeline.
Yeah.
So in 6 weeks, we might be able to apply for money, and then are we talking about, I just know there's a lot of people in the community that are wondering, hey, when can I get broadband? And it seems like we've delayed several times on the initial round. So is it like, we're feeling pretty hopeful, it sounds like right now, about 6 weeks, and then after that, then because this is teeing up a fairly significant decision of like, do we want to make a big investment in expanding broadband? So just preparing us and then asking like, what's the timeline for residents?
6 weeks for those 142 customers. And then another thought, I don't know, with the pre-terminated cables that we move over to, maybe another month and a half, 2 months for recruiting the other 100, recruiting and connecting the additional 100 subscribers. That's the bench, that's the milestone. That 250 would have meant we completed our
Okay,
pilot
so
project.
probably it'll be like somewhere like near the end of the year that we would be talking about beyond the pilot.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the entire community has benefited from this effort. I think you've all have seen better plans and higher speeds available through the legacy provider. So while we are currently serving 67 homes, the entire village now has access to faster internet at better rates. So I think that our bold approach to serving this broadband issue in our community has resulted in helping all of our customers. but I don't think we can let up yet because prices could change if we let up.
May well change. Okay, any other questions on the manager's report? Okay, let's move into old business. So work session discussion is on me, I guess. So you saw Josue's memo clarifying like what he was thinking about with the work session recommendation. I highlighted at the beginning, and we've added to future agenda items more time to really like process that. So I'm just gonna, I guess, from my perspective, shorten this to based on our last discussion, and I think Carmen made some good comments around, the fact that, just adding more time to meetings, isn't necessarily something that I think we need to commit to. I think that in the short term, I'd like to see if talking about future agenda items in more depth to help prepare the team for what we want to see, how that helps with, streamlining our process and making our meetings more productive. But that doesn't mean we can't still have work session, items. And I think one of the things that is on my schedule, and I don't think we've reached out about it yet, is that part 2 around our village goals. And so that's something that I think Judy's going to be reaching out soon to talk about how we check in. And I think that's something I think in particular we were talking about last time. And Gavin, you highlighted is sort of like where are we at and how do we make sure we're focusing on our priorities. So, but I guess the upshot is my understanding is we're not moving to like 30-minute work session ahead of each meeting at this point, but that we are going to see how more time on future agenda items works, and then we still have the opportunities to add work sessions as we go. So happy to hear anybody else's thoughts, but yeah, Marianne.
So first, I appreciated Josue's memo to us, clarifying that, and also the added written reports that you've been giving too. So I think both of those things, the potential for the kind of work session we're talking about, as well as background reports, is helpful. There are also times I think that council members want to have a work session. For example, I think we're in a place when, in terms of the climate action work, that council itself, I want council itself to weigh in on, and whether it happens in a regular meeting or before the meeting as a work session, more than a 10-minute thing. And so I think I've already requested that be for the second meeting in June. But there are other things, whether it's, well, I don't need to mention what other things might be, but so I still like, whether it's before a meeting or during the meeting, that we take time. Well, today we took time on the pesticide policy, which we hadn't planned, but anyway, so to plan to do that.
Yes. Okay.
And Kevin? And I'll just weigh in, we started some conversation about this, and then life took over and I sort of lost the thread on things. But Josue, we had some initial conversations about council meeting with YSTC. So I don't know if that would be considered a work session or a council meeting or what, but that's, they were hoping to speak to the whole body. So, that'll be a separate meeting that we still need to plan.
Certainly. And Brian, since you brought up the retreat, I'm sorry, I wrote up another memo about having a planning session ahead of a potential retreat. So that memo's in your desk. So I'm sorry that didn't get over to you in the packet, but I think that's also part of the long-term planning process that we can look at our overall village goals and look to prioritize and schedule the work that needs to take place to execute on those goals. And we could do some long-term planning. So all of these things are being done so that we can accomplish our very ambitious agenda. And we've accomplished a lot so far this year, but it's come with a little pain. So I think we can get to it with less pain.
Okay. Gavin?
So just so I'm clear, you're saying, Brian, Josue's memo about doing the work session before, and I thought like our last meeting, we said, oh, we'll try one next month. But then we're saying now, are you saying that we're not gonna try one, we're gonna do the 15 minutes at the end of the meeting instead?
Well, I think that is ideally going to address Josue's goal when he mentioned it, which is better understanding what council needs for these discussions. But I'm not opposed to, adding that work session as well. I think we do need to be conscious of how long our meetings go. So again, I think we've got to be, decide whether we want to add that onto a meeting. But, like Carmen said the last time, I mean, one way or another, it's more time, so.
So my 2 cents would be, I get a little nervous about trying to have a substantive conversation at the end of a meeting that doesn't feel like you're sort of bringing all the baggage that like you compiled, whereas the beginning, it feels like it's fresher. The other thing is, I guess I looked at this as a solution to, so like, if we spend 30 minutes proactively addressing things, then we wouldn't have as long of a meeting because we wouldn't get ourselves into as many holes or issues. So just for whatever it's worth, I thought about it as like sort of like a cancel out kind of thing. So I think based on what I'm hearing, I would still support trying one out. Trying out a 30-minute before a work session, still also consciously talking about the agenda proactively in the future agenda part.
Yeah,
that's
if
my
we're gonna
2 cents.
do that, then let's pick a thing. Like, I like Mary Ann, like, okay, we're gonna talk about the CASP, or we're gonna talk about the climate action, we're talking, like, let's pick a thing per the meeting, not like 4 things, not 2 things, 1 thing.
Right. And in my mind, I think we're talking about,
if-
I think we're
if
talking
we're
about
gonna-
2 things, right? So I
Right.
think we're talking about like deep diving into a thing, which I think is good. But also, I just want everyone to be aware that what Josue wanted to raise is that the team often feels like they don't get clear messages about what we need to make
And
decisions.
if
So I
we-
want to make sure we're
And if
addressing
we
both.
will concentrate
Mhm.
on a thing instead of 8 things per meeting, things can even be related.
Mhm.
But, it doesn't make sense to talk about climate action and sustainability plan and then housing at the same meeting.
Mhm.
Like, we got to hone in and we got to figure out as a body what thing, if we're going to have these meetings, this is in my opinion, if we're going to have these meetings before council meetings, or try it out, a half an hour meeting before a council meeting, what are we going to talk about first?
Right. Yeah. And I guess I like the idea of, so I agree with trying both. And, but just so we're clear on, there's 2 different goals, I think. And to me, I think we need to have that village goals check-in.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, I think that's the first, like, what are we focusing on for the rest of the year? So, yeah. Okay.
And I put a proposal that we get 2 council members in a room with Judy, myself, and Amy Blankenship, so we can prep for that retreat, that goals check-in, so.
So can we
Yeah.
talk about this one? So where I hear us leaving the work session thing is that we're gonna talk about our goals. We're definitely doing the 15 minutes, potentially up to future agenda planning where things might get flagged. Then we're maybe pausing on the 30-minute example, maybe until we get our goals together, at which point then we can prioritize which one issue is that. So we're just pausing on, yeah? Okay. On this thing. So Josue, can you just help me understand? You're basically saying this would be a pre-meeting that would inform the full meeting for everybody,
Yes.
right? Okay. I've just read it as we were sitting here, so I don't feel like I digested it super well. I know we talked about it very briefly earlier, but all I want is like, I just look at it like the way the agenda is framed is often how things go.
Right.
So as long as we're, I don't know, if there's an ability to have input on the way the agenda is framed so that we're not missing, we have an opportunity to give that input, that's all. But otherwise, I support the idea of people working to organize us. Okay.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the Yellow Springs Fairfield update. So Carmen Josue, Carmen?
So wait, do we need to select who's gonna do this?
Oh,
Or do I make a motion or something, or I don't know, does anybody else have opinions about this?
Yeah, if you guys don't make a decision here, I'll follow up with Brian and then I'll
Well-
take it from there.
I mean, since we're talking about it, so who wants to be in the mix?
Well, certainly you.
Yep, probably makes sense for me.
Okay. And I'm gonna try to yield.
Gavin?
I mean, I would be interested, yeah. I don't
Okay.
know if other people are interested, I'm not
All right,
adamant about it, but.
folks good with me and Gavin? Okay, sweet. All right, so we'll meet soon on that. Okay, so Carmen, tell us what's going on with Fairfield. Looks like some good work.
So, yeah, and I can't pull up the email, it's in the packet. I don't remember what day it was, but I had the opportunity to meet with chief and council clerk to try and figure out some, more gentle solutions than my initial thing was just like, we'll just start warning and ticketing everybody. And so we agreed, or we thought about increasing police presence, and chief said that she would do that as, as the schedule allowed. And I've noticed, quite frankly, because I live over there, just a little bit of that step up in presence has seeing a cruiser as opposed to a sign that says "just saying" makes a huge impact. And so that was one of the pieces. We talked about signage with LEDs on around them, and then we talked about maybe a flashing light overhead to indicate that people need to slow down. We talked a little bit about the speed cameras, but I think that trying these other methods first could work. We have a lot of stuff going on, and that speed cameras would be kind of, that could be a thing, but also let's see if these other things work first.
So I was curious, if we've got officers out there, why would we do warnings? Why not just tickets? I mean, if we're putting the.
So honestly, and I'm sure that Chief Burge will correct me if I'm incorrect in the summations, is that we want to kind of have a gentler approach to policing.
Mhm.
I mean, if you get a ticket, you're not doing it, but just the deterrent of seeing that cruiser out there is enough. So, ticketing if you're going crazy, of course, but 5 miles over,
Right.
that's a warning. 10 miles over, you're probably going to get a ticket. Like, there has to be a parameter set.
Yep.
But it's a little more gentle approach, I think.
We have a progressive disciplinary policy, if you will. We don't typically go straight to ticketing unless there's a serious offense. Like, you've seen some people, I don't know if you follow the docket for the mayor's court, but we've had a couple people going 20 miles, 25 miles an hour over the speed limit. And yes, those folks are coming in to see the mayor and pay their fine. So we're certainly doing that. There are a few other things we're doing in the packet. Page's memo includes some additional strategies like updating the signage. Johnny and I drove by Fairfield, Pike, and Walnut, and based on the recommendations from county engineer, we need to clear some of the visibility of the signs. So Johnny will be taking care of that with the team. So we'll clear up some signage. We'll be disrupting and doing away with some of the honeysuckle and other things that are precious to some of our residents, but it's necessary to keep the public right-of-way clear. I don't know if you want to talk about any of the particular zones. We got an area with heavy bamboo and obstructing the kids' crossing sign, so we need to clear that up.
We actually have a flamer coming in to go onto the track code, so we can actually go down and actually remove the vegetation that's right up against the roadway that people like planting
I
all the
love
way up to
watching
the
those
road.
things.
And so we're gonna do that on Fairfield Pike. We'll have a PD out there, and we'll have a bigger dump truck to protect the staff. But then as we was doing that, we drove down Corey Street, and the trees have overgrown on the bike path, which is covering a lot of the signs. So we're gonna cut some of the trees back, and we're also gonna put 3 signs on Corey Street. One is right there by the Green Meadow Apartments, and then we'll come further down and put a couple more. But we're gonna do some clearing. We're on bamboo is on the hit list for right of Walnut. As soon as it snows, it'll be laying on the road. We have to plow it away from the road. So we're gonna be doing that probably in the next week or so. So you should see more of it.
So a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, I mean, this all looks good. The one thing I want to just emphasize around speed cameras is I think it's an option that we should do the research on, just to see, again, if we make more money and can invest in traffic calming versus what we would lose. But I like the initial approach, so we can talk about that later.
Okay.
So, Gavin.
Just to throw in, the only thing I thought of since the last meeting is I do wonder about the regressivity of the speed cameras, like the richer you are, the less it costs you to have a ticket. So I just wanted to flag that as like something I feel like we should think about.
Or charge your electric vehicle, but you know.
Or charge your electric vehicle.
Or charge your electric vehicle.
I'm pro spend revenue on
Right.
electric vehicles.
But what if you have a cheaper model that takes longer to charge?
I thought we equalized that.
It's per kilowatt, right? So it doesn't matter how long it takes.
Okay.
We can move that right in the recs.
I'm just saying, it's a,
Yep.
$150 from a speed camera for somebody might not cost that much, and for somebody else, it might be a lot, that's all.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Let's move into new business.
Rec policy?
So should we have the rec discussion tonight?
Well, per Mary Ann's request, we have John Paul, who's joining us
Okay.
at 7 o'clock from PCFO.
All right.
So John Paul has been patiently waiting. John Paul, give me 1 second. I'll make you co-host here so you can unmute. So thank you, John Paul, for joining us. I've included a memo in your packet. We included quite the robust policy that we worked internally. Any questions on the policy? Also, John Paul, who you've heard from before, is joining us to make provide any responses to questions you may have, or talk about Rex and all the greatness of Rex.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mary Ann?
yeah, I have. Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the policy and the letter that you wrote about that. I have some things that I would like to suggest be included. And I guess a question, well, I think that the definition for the village municipal electric enterprise could be included under definition.
Okay.
And you mentioned that in the policy. What does that mean in terms of people or person, or, I mean, does that mean you, or does that mean Johnny, or?
Of the municipal enterprise?
Well, yeah, you say the village municipal electrical enterprise will, sell the RECs, for example, I guess.
Yeah, so in that instance, I gave it the name of the municipal enterprise because the contracts, while they are with the village, is for the generation of electricity for the electric enterprise that distributes the electricity. So we gave it a name for that enterprise. By charter, the general manager of the enterprise is the village manager. In practice, and a lot of the operation day-to-day, the general manager is the public works director, Johnny Burns. Together, there are times where we go to events and we vote on board meetings for the enterprise together, or Johnny goes and votes on behalf of the electric enterprise. So the electric enterprise is a standalone. Who steps in as the GM or the officer for it will vary depending on the topic. It'll be me, it'll be Amy Kemper. So
So
That's why.
if it were included in the definition, maybe you could shorten what you
Sure.
just said
Mhm.
that and include the people who are going to be responsible as well.
Right, okay.
And then in terms of the policy, I'm wondering if there should be some kind of requirement that a certain portion of the proceeds go for something other than just going right back into the electric fund, that a certain percentage of the proceeds go to some designated project, like, you suggested this particular project earlier, some project that's going to increase our sustainability, lower greenhouse gas emissions, or like the utility roundup. And so that's a question, but I think we want to have something in there so that we know that some amount of the proceeds goes toward something, and then who makes that decision? So I'd like to see that develop a little bit longer. And then the last thing, I don't know if maybe John Paul would talk about this, that, because I forget if it was him who suggested that when we're purchasing RECs, that we think about who we're purchasing them from. So I thought that might be included. So those are my comments.
John Paul, did you catch that?
Yep. Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit. I also agree with Marianne. I think putting in a particular percentage or an amount of money, perhaps, or up to a certain amount, is a good idea. Just to help make sure that priorities are enduring and don't come at the expense of another program or another priority. But in terms of where you're purchasing the RECs from, yeah, there are some RECs that come from questions. I think to a degree you can negate those impacts if you're spending that money on if any revenue from that swap, for instance, is put towards something that a program that reduces emissions or increases resiliency or addresses equity within your community. I think there are ways to kind of negate some of the fungibility within some of the definitions of RECs and how they're produced. But overall, I think that is less of a concern so long as proceeds are going towards those community improvements.
So in a nutshell, John Paul, as long as we're buying ERECs, green ERECs, as long as we're being intentional about how we reinvest the net proceeds, it wouldn't make a difference on what RECs we may be buying, as long as they would be green ERECs.
Yeah, so I went through all of Greenie's documentations to look at the different RECs and how they're being certified and what's counting. For the most part, it's all pretty stable. They all look really good in terms of they're coming from actual renewable projects. But again, yes, as long as you are investing them in emission reductions or community improvements, it for the most part would be a wash with any issues from how they arose.
Does that answer your question?
Maybe it was someone from one of the guys from SOPAC that suggested that when we look for ERECs, that we look at, well, say maybe something in Ohio or some kind of organization that we feel akin to, that we want to support by buying those RECs.
So the green ERECs, there's a couple attributes that you can filter out and buy for. So if you want to buy solar, or you want to buy hydro or landfill gas, you can pick what type of green E's you want to buy. And you can also pick what year you want to buy. So if you want to buy 2020 or 2021, you get to pick the year of the green ERECs that you want to buy. So there is some selection that you can go through and when choosing what greenies to buy.
So I like standards around how we choose our greenies. And, maybe this other like aspect of, because as I referenced before, the current policy, I do not think accommodates putting money into the utility roundup, because it specifically says something about like innovation, distribution, I don't know, there were 3 things. But I don't see anything in there that would indicate that we can put those revenues into utility roundup.
So that could be a certain percentage. And
Right.
somewhere, Josue, you had written about utility roundup 2. I'm not seeing it right now.
It's in the
Memo.
It's in the memo,
No.
Yeah.
but I don't think it's in the policy.
The policy states in the section, distribution of proceeds. Proceeds from the sale of RECs will be allocated towards funding the operation, maintenance, and improvement of infrastructure. They will also be used for the development of village-owned renewable energy projects, carbon reduction projects such as EV charging stations, matching funds for energy-related grants, and reinvesting in the electric enterprise for other operational needs.
Right, so I think that's all great, but I don't think that is Euro.
So you will want something from the memo, because the memo is very explicit.
Right.
And it itemizes investments in electric infrastructure.
Yep,
funding
all the other things you
mutual-
cover in the memo, I think are in there, yeah.
Okay, so you will want more of those 4 items that identify in the memo reflected in the policy.
I think if that's what we want, yeah, so.
So what do you think about this idea, Josue, of putting a percentage or cap on? Because right now, I think what it's saying is basically the proceeds could go to infrastructure, or they could go to renewable projects, or whatever these other random things are that we're at. Nah, I mean, I shouldn't be looking at it. These other related costs are. But what do you think about, I don't know, that the idea of having some percentage of it that's specifically going toward renewables. So I'm not saying that we do this now. It seems like we are clearly pursuing renewables. But if in the future we didn't, I guess they could just undo this too, but anyway, what do you think?
I think it's a spectrum, and different folks in different seats have different opinions. So I'm more focused on looking for a balance, but also being mindful of where the source of the revenue is. And that source of the revenue is ratepayers. Ratepayers, the folks who pay the electricity bill, are paying for these contracts. So we want to look towards opportunities that long-term, it builds a more resilient grid. It reduces, it has a decarbonization effect on our grid. And we look for the resilient and overall looking to reduce the rates for our customers in long-term. So I think I would like to prioritize that, because that's where the source of the money comes from. The amount of money that we invest in the other activities like utility roundup or roundup 2.0, other things, I think that they are secondary to building a resilient, less carbon dependent grid. So finding that balance. You speak with Johnny would prioritize, I believe you will prioritize infrastructure. Feel free to jump in on that. So I think that, because he's responsible for making sure that the poles don't tip over, or there is an outage, 2 outages over the weekend. How do we do to build that resiliency in those, in the network? So that's his focus, because that's his day-to-day and what he's reacting to. I have to look at these other pieces. So I think we have to strike a balance. I think we gotta pay particular attention where the source of the revenue is, while also making those much-needed investments. Utility roundup, you're hearing we're spending more money, so we're going to do a supplemental and put more money in utility roundup. We know that our residents need assistance with these things. We want to make that. I think the elevating that next program is, with the subsidies, it only is going to go so far, right? That we have to find a way to reduce the overall cost burden for those customers. And that's where that weatherization and other energy audits and other energy reduction programs come into play, because I think that's where we can be very effective with our utility customers that are dependent on these subsidies assistance twice a year, that, hey, how do we help reduce the impact long-term. So those are things that I think are important to find a way to invest. If you were to ask me, what can we do? Right now, I know the inventory that we have, we're sitting on, depending on the market conditions, last time we checked, we were looking at somewhere around $500,000, $550,000 of rec net proceeds. So if we were to look at that number on a percentage split, what does it make sense to split? Maybe an 80-20.
So can I just add, so we did the utility rate increases.
Yes.
So I guess like in terms of investing in infrastructure, is there, like, I mean, the ratepayer argument is sort of compelling of like, well, should we take that money and drive it back into lowering everybody's rates? I mean, where do you find the line between lowering rates effectively, investing in more infrastructure, or making, like, in some ways the Europe stuff sounds kind of, and it's not doing anything about the carbon necessarily. I mean, I guess with the weatherization stuff, it could, right?
It could reduce their energy
Chime in
program.
just a little bit.
sure.
I think that as far as the infrastructure goes, we're not talking about investing in new infrastructure. Talking about making the necessary repairs and maintenance of existing infrastructure so that people can like get electricity to their house. You know what I mean? Like, this is where we kind of are. And
Yeah.
so, yes, this other stuff is nice, but to be pragmatic, I think that, you know, if there aren't any poles and if we're in such a state of disrepair as it is, then, you know, what, so I would kind of agree, I would.
Can it just?
Thank you. I'm sorry.
The thing, no, I'm just trying to make sure, I'm trying to understand, do we need more money beyond the utilities? That's the question. If we've got other infrastructure issues beyond the utility rate increases, that's good to know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll go back like Brian. I've been this way since I've been here. I don't think we should sell them unless we're going to reinvest them into the proper location. With that being said, I just ordered a load of poles 2 weeks ago. They would normally cost me $9,000. They cost me $27,000. I just ordered transformer, 4 of them, for $21,000. In 2014, I could have bought them for less than $4,000. I just had 16 transformers ordered for a news development that was normally in the ballpark about $8,000-9,000 worth of transformers, and then the 3-phase, maybe $20,000. It's $105,000. I'll see them transformers in 2024. So the need for the money to stay in the infrastructure where it belongs is more crucial today than it was 5-6 years ago. When I first got here in 2014, this conversation would have never happened. Then we sold some wrecks, and then we found other projects, and then we found this ideal, and then we found that ideal. And I've been screaming at the top of my lungs since I've been here. Brian's my witness. Quit selling them unless we're putting them in the right place. I love the Europe thing. I do. But if we funnel money into a program, and then all of a sudden we don't have no money to funnel into that program, what are you doing now? To put the money back into to lower the bills, you can't guarantee next year we're going to have these wrecks. You can't guarantee what's going to happen. So use the money that is gifted us by the sale of the wrecks, put it back in the infrastructure, be able to do some of the larger projects that we have budgeted in 5 years and 6 years. One of the projects that we was talking about earlier on Walnut Street, that's actually budgeted for this year, but if we apply for this grant, I'm going to try to push it off to see if we get the grant, so I'm not investing $150,000 to do one project versus investing $200,000 to do 4 projects. So it's a floating game. We've got a 10-year program. We now have staff. 25 poles is not going to take long at all. These guys are on it. They're changing poles out. They've changed 4 out in the last 2 weeks. You know, so please keep the money where it belongs. I need every dime I can get. I can't tell you that enough.
And just to be clear, you need every dime even after the utility increases, correct? Meaning
Even
like,
after the utility increases.
okay,
Because the cost is going up. I mean,
Okay.
we're trying to hold our rates and trying to do what we can, but
Okay.
they're not holding them for us. I mean, a 15-day quote on the transformer. Used to be, it was 45 days. Now it's 15 days.
And the changes to the electric utility were minimal, right? I mean, we just did the, readiness for service thing. So, I mean, unlike, water and sewer. So, thanks,
So
Johnny.
ideally, if we can find projects like the one we just talked about, that hits on all the marks, right? Infrastructure improvement, economic development, and EV charging infrastructure. There are going to be other opportunities where use of the rec proceeds are going to check all those boxes.
So I guess I want to, not that everyone's not aware, we're about an hour over the time that we had allocated for this meeting. So I guess, how are we going to get the rec policy over the finish line? What's going to happen?
Well,
What's
I think there's what I'm hearing is the definitions, that's easy. The definitions is going to be easy. The standards for selecting greenees is going to be easy. It's how do we reinvest net proceeds?
Okay.
That's where the work needs to be done.
All right. So how about, what's two council members that want to be involved in a discussion, Mary Ann and Kevin? Okay. Is that good with everybody? Bring that back to the next council meeting. Let's get this done.
Well, yeah, we got the ordinance ready to go,
Okay.
so we can bring it back as legislation.
Okay. But yeah, I guess I, want to respect everyone's time. So we've got two more new business items.
Thank you,
Or
John
any-
Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Yeah, great
you.
discussion. Yeah. And
Thanks, everyone.
yeah, thanks a lot. And I do want to say, I think it's been a great meeting. So I'm sure. Okay, so street fair. Josue, you want to start? And then I know Mark's here.
Yes, I've got a memo in to you about what the opportunity that's before you. We have the opportunity to be the presenting a sponsor, which puts us, as you will, at the top of the food chain as sponsors go. And with that comes a lot of privileges. Those are outlined in the memo. Coincidentally, the amount of the sponsorship is also the amount of our estimated cost burden of executing the project. That's $10,000 from Public Works and around $5,200 from Public Safety. There are going to be a few other costs there that are going to be difficult to calculate, or we don't calculate, such as my time, Johnny's time, and all the meetings we have and all the other people that are involved.
And is this 15 times 2?
No, that's 15 from the cost or the sponsorship.
Is it 15 per street fair?
Yes.
Okay. And the 40,000 number that was put out there, where did that
The
go?
40,000, well, we're changing a few things up on how we manage the cost. So Johnny has found ways to cut the Public Works timing. Paige is sticking to what officers she has available, and all the extra officers are going to be procured directly by Chamber.
And how much do we expect will be generated from the vendor fee?
Those are going to be based on, I still need to get with Mark about what are going to be reductions, meaning those that are going to be paying one time for the entire year, and what are going to be non-charitable organizations that are not subject to the fee. And I don't know if you have an estimate.
That's something that Jocelyn will work out, and I know that she's working hard to make sure that that's working and that we're providing the proper paperwork back to the village. The one thing a couple of things I did want to say about costs and revenue. First of all, we found out we were quite surprised when we found out that the original agreement that the chamber had with the village was not upheld, which was that all of the electric and water drop fees were supposed to be a pass-through back to the village. That had never occurred, and this will be the first street fair that had occurred, because we were not aware.
Yeah,
that
I was
had
shocked when I learned that, so thanks for.
So the other thing I wanted to point out is that Mayor Pam made a point last year of saying that she was happy that street fair was coming back because of the revenues that would come back to the village, and parking fines were in the thousands. So this is,
Parking fines?
Parking, different fines that had to do with traffic and parking and that kind of thing. One of the things I did want to mention real quickly regarding the economic impact to our region is that a week and a half ago, I attended the Greene County Development Breakfast, and we were honored because Street Fair and Hamvention were credited with bringing tens of millions of dollars into our region. One street fair.
Right.
And so Greene County counts on us to make this happen.
Yeah. Too bad they don't give it back to the village, but I agree. They do count on us. So, I mean, that's honest. So,
Well, I mean, property taxes can run through the county and come back to the village now, don't they?
yeah, we don't get sales tax, but yeah. So, since you're on the mic, Mark, anything else you want to highlight? I mean, I don't think you need to sell us on the value of street fair, so I don't know.
I want to highlight just improvements. You see the tote bags, those, so we've got 1,000 of those that will be available so that folks won't have to use non-reusable bags. And you're going to love the beer cups. The beer cups are actually color changing. So you pour beer in it, it goes from clear to blue. We solved the problem of being able to see through them to be able to pour efficiently, and they don't get hot like metal. So I think you'll enjoy it.
You're using the aluminum ones?
No,
Oh, something different.
no, we're using, as I said, we're using recyclable plastic color changing.
Oh.
They're stadium cups, so the hard ones that are reusable.
Oh, yeah.
And we made them specifically the color. We spent the extra money making them the color changing ones, so people will be more inclined to take them home with them, so they can use them. They can use them at home in their own pantry.
Sweet. I love it. And I just want to say I appreciate, I know it's been a toggle, but I love that we're working on this. And does anyone have any questions for Mark? Okay.
I do want to say I'm looking forward to the discussion on June 5th. To be quite honest, the costs for events have been a moving target.
Yeah.
In 2018, the costs were. I actually have a memo that shows the costs were for both street fairs came to $18,171. That number was the same for 2019. And so it's been a moving target, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what we finally settle on so that we can plan well.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. So Jessica, come on up.
Just a quick question. Jessica Thomas, Yellow Springs News. Should you all approve this funding, what part of the budget is it coming out of?
It's coming out of the council commission budget, which is why I flagged that earlier, because we're going to have to think about what that looks like moving forward. And I think, what we committed to last year was that we would, think about the transparency of understanding, what events cost while recognizing the benefits, and be able to articulate that better, and then have a process, which I understand it's been stressful for some. I apologize for that, because we try to put out there that we're just trying to figure this out. And I will say I've had a lot of meetings. I've got a meeting with Art on the Lawn folks tomorrow. I want to talk more about Juneteenth and MLK Junior Day and whatnot. Every event's unique. So I think it's going to be a work in progress, but we're going to figure out something that's, I think, going to work for everybody. I hope.
And to be clear, the village is not cutting us a check. This is a recognition of what we know the village spends
Right.
on street fair. This is a payment in kind. It is not cash coming out specifically, directly out of an account.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Mark. Yeah, that's very important. Okay, yep. Okay, if no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Juneteenth.
Well, that's the next book.
Okay, I'm
We should make a motion on this, right?
Okay.
Because we're a donation request. So I'll make a, not yet?
Sorry, can I
yes.
just ask a question? So if we go over our amount, do we have to do something? Like if we had a council budget and then we go over that amount.
We do a then and now,
Okay.
so we'd add to the,
Supplemental.
yeah, or supplemental, right? Yeah.
But functionally, we're putting money back, like it's gonna come out of this, but it's gonna go over there.
Right.
Okay, in a way that it didn't last year?
It didn't in the past, yes.
Okay, thank you.
For some events it did, but we weren't consistent.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the donation request for street fair.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great work. Thank you, guys. Okay, and then we do have the other agenda item, which is the request from Juneteenth. And I know we've got Kevin here. What I noticed is the request is for 1,000. I saw one item which was for 1,200 that was specifically the rental for something. What was that?
I see speakers or 1,500 rental.
Street closing. Okay. So to me, that already, is something that, fits in our purview. What I want to do is the same calculus that we've done with other events, so we're consistent around, what we think the cost is overall. And so we will probably increase your donation request, would be my guess. But I don't know that we have to have discussion. I'm comfortable with that request. There's clearly one item that is again, at a minimum, it should be that 1,200, and then we can talk about some other things after that. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to say anything, but I think we're good with that request. Yeah, feel free to come up.
Maybe just briefly just say that last year, you probably remember we did a walk from Wilberforce to Yellow Springs, and then we had the program at the Bryan Center. We decided it was great, perfect, but it's a lot to do every year. So the walk, we are going to do a walk, but it's going to be in Yellow Springs from the high school. And then because of the construction at Bryan Center, the program will be on the grounds of Mills Lawn.
Right.
And that we think may attract more people because it's in the center of town. And that brings the budget down as well. Last year, the budget was probably came out to about $7,000. And
right.
So it's a little bit less this year. So that's the change.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions or comments?
No, so you're proposing,
So I'm going to say, let's start with 1,200. And then I think we're very close to figuring out a process for how we look at these events. I tried to get a memo together, but I think through my meeting tomorrow, and again, I want to follow up, I just want to understand how all these events work, what the revenue streams, and then come back. But I think I'm going to recommend that we start with 1,200 for the street closure, and then see where we go from there. So is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Brian, I have a question. Since this one is using a sponsorship form, and in the past we give cash, you're saying $1,200 for the closure.
Right.
That might not be 1,200. So what do you want to do with the difference? Give the difference as a cash contribution?
Well, there are a couple other items on there that are.
So so maybe if you do a number.
Yeah.
Whatever that
But
number.
let's start with that guarantee, and then
Okay.
let's revisit this, because I do want to kind of wrap this up so everybody's got some clarity. So,
So
Marianne?
are you suggesting that, no, you're not. You're not, at first I thought you were suggesting that our donation essentially be in kind for what we would charge, but that isn't what you're suggesting.
because
It would be
we
that
haven't done that
plus-
calculation of what the event costs yet, but we do have a request for 1,000, and a line item that says 1,200 for the street closure. So I guess I want to guarantee that, and then, we can come back. So.
Yes, it's effectively.
I guess, does that, you feel what Brian has suggested works for?
Yes, the 1,200 number is the number that the when we submitted the permit and asked for the street closing, we were told that that's what it would cost because Monday is a holiday. And so that's where that number came from.
And that works for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, again, on the form, it's a request for 1,000, so I just increased it by
Yeah,
200
Yeah,
with, options for more. Because Juneteenth is very important to us, and thanks for putting it together. Okay, anything else? Okay, so I made a motion. Is there a second?
second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, guys. All right, so I think we are talking about, okay, so remember boards and commissions, unless you have a request where you need feedback from council, no need to elevate anything. I appreciate all the written reports that we got. So do we need to talk about anything with boards and commissions?
Not yet.
Okay. So then, future agenda items. So I think, and Mark flagged it, event fees discussion. I do want to put some closure on this.
Yeah, we had a proposal, or I had a proposal to make tonight on this that, I mentioned it at, I don't know if it was last council meeting, the previous meeting, that we wanted to convene the special events committee to talk through the legislation, and I had asked for 2 council members to be part of that special events committee so that we can iron out all the details of the special event fee. So I was going to petition to take off the special event fees discussion for the June 5th so that the special events committee could meet, hash out all the
What we've gotten from Pride and Street Fair. Yeah, I think we're ready to work on that. So yeah, let's pull that off of June 5th. What else? Okay, Housing Committee report.
That's on there. We're planning to make that report. That's a discussion item.
Okay, so Gavin and Carmen, what are you guys thinking there?
Well, I mean, without getting into all of it, I'd say that at the last housing committee meeting, there's several, I think substantive, relatively complex questions that I think committee members, speak up if I say this wrong, but that we wanted to get some input from council members on. So, I mean, like I said, I mentioned, to me, this feels like it'd be a good thing to have like 15 minutes for. And then I think it requires us, having a good memo before Josue agreed to draft something and share it around with the committee. So that I think the way that you did it this time, where you're starting to kind of flag, like, here are some questions that we can identify those, with feedback with Josue's memo before, so that everybody kind of knows, here's the things that we want input on. Is this what you're asking me? Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I think the purpose here is, let's think about like appropriate time and then also what should accompany. So I agree, like, a solid memo of, what are some of the issues to get.
So I guess the only thing I'd note is that, given what happened at this meeting, I'll just say that housing, this is it's a 15-minute conversation where if we're not careful, it could totally be a much longer conversation. So I'm just naming that something's happening that's leading us to be much longer.
Right.
Got to be careful on that one.
And I think in that case, we've talked about how we need to be better about saying, okay, we did our 15 minutes. We need to put this into a work session or, a next session. I mean, I think that's how we, address that. Okay. All right, what else do we have on here? Composting. Are we talking about that at the next meeting?
I don't know. I don't think I'm ready to come back to that.
That's a no. Okay.
Mary Ann and I haven't had a conversation to.
I think that we could make a brief report.
Okay.
Could not.
Okay.
I'm looking for stuff to pull.
Yeah.
Just because.
I mean, I think we'll know more than we do now. I mean, about whether and how we can move forward.
Okay. So a brief update?
Pardon?
A
Yeah,
brief
an
update?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be a written report then.
does that include Mary's Way as well?
No, the Mary's Way, I think, for some of the, you're not on this emo chain,
So that's, by the way, the name of the trail to your area.
I think that project, Johnny got us the estimates from Fillmore about what that bike path will cost to construct is significantly more than what the grant was for. So anything we do there is gonna require either more money or an adjustment to the scope. So I think it'll be too soon to have a conversation here with what to take next step, because we don't know what the grantor is going to authorize there. So I sent off an email to the leadership at Agraria about next step on what does a project scope modification will look like. So I don't think we're ready to have the Mary's Way conversation.
I think you're more likely to get that bump from Greene County Parks and Trails than you are from ODNR, just as a tip.
Okay, so maybe that's something that you can help us out with your relationships.
Okay, policing policy, and I know, Gavin, you had mentioned this too, where we're at. So,
of course, Kevin has been out of commission some. I don't know whether you'll be able to do your part or not, but I've met with the chief, written a report of that meeting, planning on doing a number of meetings, ride-along kind of things. I anticipate we will have some report out from that by that meeting.
All right, I can commit to that, but also we are doing, I don't know how much effort it'll be for the rec policy. Sounds like not a lot. Because we committed to doing something, but it sounded like it was on the verge of being ready, but does that mean we're for next meeting or no?
Coming back to an ordinance?
That would come back as an ordinance, right?
Okay.
I think if we give it the time to the conversation, we can be. So I don't know how much time we will need for that.
I think it would be a one
hour meeting?
1 hour, one-off conversation.
Okay.
All right.
so does that mean we're gonna bring a rec policy back to the next meeting? Is that what
That's what
is
it
being
sounds like.
suggested?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
What I was wondering is, could it be done? And how close is it to being ready?
Are you guys gonna have time to do that?
Put it to meet for an hour between now and the 5th? Yeah.
Okay,
Let's say yes, and then we'll
well,
adjust.
and then you got, yeah, exactly. Okay, so we got through a bunch of our second readings, so we won't have as much legislation. We definitely are not gonna have another,
How long are these rezoning things gonna take? Are they complex? I mean, we talked about it last time.
Not complex, unless you would like to make them complex.
Well, there was a lot of not complex. that
It's
got
your
made.
prerogative to do it as complex as you like.
well, all the discussions tonight were great, so.
So the other legislation we're bringing back is the e-bikes on the bike path. We'll look to make that modification. That's
Yeah, the bike path focus, right?
not the other one.
Right.
The bike path.
But you can talk about it offline. I just don't know why it requires an entire other meeting for you to determine that you also wouldn't want micro-mobility devices on downtown sidewalks when you do not allow bikes or skateboards. To me, that seems like the most obvious addition. It's just that they didn't exist back in the day when you put up the signs. But if you want to take more time and not bring an ordinance back, that's
Well,
fine.
who is having that discussion? Did we decide who's meeting with the Lawsons?
We did not give a signed it.
Because it could come back to the next meeting, but I guess it's a,
I don't know that you need the Lawsons.
Yeah,
I mean, if the Lawsons are deciding who can ride downtown, I don't know that the right horse is driving the carriage here.
well, I think what we're trying to do is a better job of proactive discussions about these things before we bring them to council. So that's why I think it would be good to, yeah.
My 2 cents was, if it's as simple as, like, when somebody said that they were expecting that they couldn't use them on sidewalks, if it's literally like hey, is it cool if we don't use these on sidewalks and there's nobody who's gonna fight about it? then it could be that easy.
Yep.
I think we've just seen a number of things this year. I mean, stuff's happened that I totally agree with the proactive communication. Would love to see it. If that could happen in one phone call, like I'm happy for Josue you to call them, and if, as long as there's no issue,
Right.
then we could do it all in one.
Yep.
All right, I'll call the Lawsons.
Okay. Okay, so what else?
You gotta bring back the ordinance that you tabled.
Mm-hmm.
Get it back.
Okay, do we need anything for that?
You need Denise, and she'll be back.
She'll be back.
All right.
The industrial thing.
And you'll get to meet Meg at that next meeting.
Yeah, okay.
So what about this economic development piece?
The work session?
Yeah. When are we?
Yeah, but Kevin and I need to get together and propose something.
So you're gonna propose something at the next meeting, or when are you gonna?
You want to
propose
propose that at the next meting?
You know what, you're talking about the YSDC?
Yeah,
Yes.
it'll be,
Remember when I sent a thing to you guys and said, hey, get with the YSDC and get with the King, and get with the Times, because
Yeah.
we can make that happen. We don't have to wait for a meeting to get it at least locked into place. And then we also need to lock into place a half-day retreat. So you got a lot of stuff, and the sooner you get it on your calendars, the easier it is to get it there, because imagine you're all wanting to leave for a bit, so.
so just as long as we're straight, I mean, the actual meeting with YTC at this juncture ought to be.
And given the timeline, we are 15 days away from June. We're 15 days away from June, and I know we can, I know we can work fast, but I don't think we're gonna get a meeting in the next 15 days, so it's gonna just.
So what I said when no one heard me was that this meeting between council and YSTC ought to involve our new planning
Right.
director. Yep.
Okay, and then let's,
So we start queuing up some dates for these meetings.
so then let's also put the debrief on the proposed work plan
As
based
a
on this
discussion?
memo.
As
Yeah.
a discussion item, okay.
So with the ultimate goal that we need to have an hour and a half-ish meeting next time and not a 3.5 hours meeting. So, okay, so I don't want to load too many other things on here unless there's something urgent. Gap.
So I'm just, in this spirit of like future agenda thinking, so it seems like it might come up in the proposal in this memo about how we'll do some prep for the goal planning. But I just was thinking about how I'd like for us to consider doing some visioning, which like Josue mentions in the memo, the idea of strategic planning. So I might just try to like fold it in there. Basically, there are some things that I think we all agree on in theory, but we don't have written down anywhere. The reason that I was prompted was this, is thinking about the housing committee of like, well, how much affordable housing do we want? And do we want growth is another kind of question that's come up. So anyway, just saying that I think it might be valuable in the same way we have these goals to have some like sort of guiding statements of like, what are we actually trying to pursue as a village that would then maybe help us have some guidance of whether or not things are priorities. Are they helping us get to that vision? So just, I don't think it needs to be a future agenda item since there's this thing.
Right.
But I'm letting y'all know that I would probably advocate for that to be sort of part of the framing of how the goals check-in meeting would go.
Sounds good. Okay, anything else? All right, and by the way, kudos on the Ellis Pond cleanup. I heard lots of positives from Xylem.
Everybody at Xylem are some nuts.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, okay, and yeah, thanks for the team as well, yeah, for making that all happen. So, okay.
Before we close, I want to acknowledge two folks that have been critical to our success here. Lacey will cease her tenure as station manager, and I just want to thank you for all you've done for us, Lacey.
Is this your last meeting? Yes. Oh my gosh,
wow.
Lacey.
Who's gonna be here?
Wow, you've been awesome.
So we will be working on a placement and training starting tomorrow or later this week. So we're very grateful for Lacey's contribution and elevating the station. So
Yeah.
now she's.
And we've got a cool logo now.
Yeah, but she'll be around, and, you know, there will be other things that we hope to get her involved in, so we're working on. I also want to thank Philip Orr. Philip's last day will be Friday the 19th.
Whoa.
He's moving on to other endeavors and adventures.
Wow.
So we
Thanks, Philip.
We haven't figured out that piece yet, but, you know, Phil has been instrumental with our communication strategy since the pandemic hit, and gosh, at one point, we were doing 3 town halls a week, and then the governor copied us, and, you know. So thank you, Philip, for all you've done for us.
Wow. Wow. All right. Thanks, Lacey. Thanks, Philip.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys are going to be missed. Okay. So I think with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
I finished my water. Just wanted to keep it.